Good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas in the Action News 5 digital desk. It is a Wednesday. It's March 29th, and it is a beautiful start to your day. Check out this high five camera downtown Memphis. Not a cloud in the sky. It is a little chilly out there. As you can see, it's 44 degrees, but the sun is shining brightly across Memphis and the Mid-South. Another shot from our high five camera. We will see lots of sunshine today, and that's going to warm us up. Meteorologist Brittany Bryan has details.
Good morning. So we woke up this morning to temperatures in the 30s. Eventually today, though, we will warm up quite a bit because we'll have sunshine. 57 degrees at noon, 64 at 3 o'clock. Temperatures still in the lower 60s at 5 and right around 60 degrees at 7. 64 degrees is the high today. Yesterday we got to 62, so we'll feel very similar. We're still just barely below that 68-degree average, but overall a nice day ahead for us. Low temperatures tonight, close to normal at about 43 degrees. It'll be clear this evening. Mostly clear tomorrow as well. At least early in the day. We'll end up with more clouds in the afternoon on Thursday and a few showers late Thursday night as our next weather system moves in. Friday, though, a 70% chance of rain in the forecast. A cold front moves through, and that's what's going to bring that high chance for rain. There's currently a 3 out of 5 for a severe weather threat. You'll notice it includes a large portion of the United States, and part of our area also under that 3 out of 5. Now, I don't necessarily think that we'll have too high of a severe weather threat in our area. Has a lot to do with the early morning rain that we'll have in the Mid-South. Instability is just not impressive with the system to me. Damaging winds would be the main concern if we did get a severe thunderstorm. Hail and tornado threat, very, very low with this one, but damaging winds can obviously still cause some issues. So let's talk timing. 7 o'clock in the morning Friday. Again, there will be some rain. There'll be showers as we go through the morning, clouds in place. Now we may dry out for a little bit, not for long. I don't think it'll be long enough to recover from that early morning rain. Right around noon, a break in those showers, temperatures in the lower to mid 70s, but already by 3 or 4 o'clock, the rain spreads in. 5 o'clock, we have widespread rain here across the entire Mid-South, but thunderstorms will be possible between 5 and midnight. There could still be some lingering storms in northeast Mississippi through midnight, but Memphis will already be clearing out, and any remaining rain will be out of here by the time you wake up Saturday morning. This is 7 a.m. No rain, and even clouds start to move out by that point. Rainfall totals will be close to an inch, could be closer to that half-inch mark in Tunica and Helena, but overall about an inch of rain will fall on Friday. And then after that, I told you the weekend is dry. 70 degrees on Saturday, 73 on Sunday, so it should be a beautiful weekend. Now, if anything changes, if any severe thunderstorm watches or even tornado watches get issued, you'll want to have our First Alert weather app. Any watches or warnings that get issued get sent straight to your phone. Plus, we post video updates on there, and we update you nonstop during the day. 64 degrees is our high today, 72 tomorrow, warming up all the way to 74 on Friday. And then I showed you those 70s over the weekend. Next week, we'll have a chance for some thunderstorms on Tuesday. May see a few showers on Monday as the weather system moves through the Mid-South next week.
Okay, let's talk about what's coming up in this hour on Action News 5's digital desk. Every day we report violent crime in the Bluff City. Local faith leaders say they've had enough. How the plan to take action from their perspective is on the way. We're also talking about a former Memphis Grizzlies going into the Basketball Hall of Fame. We'll tell you who and some of the reasons behind that and how you can help families in Mississippi affected by last week's tornadoes. We'll give you a couple different areas where you can donate or perhaps drop off some donations. But we want to begin right now with a shooting that took place here at the Crew Lounge on Madison Avenue. Investigators say call came in just before 11 o'clock last night. One person was taken to Regional 1, another person taken to Methodist University Hospital. They were suffering from gunshot wounds. Police say the gunman is a male with a beard wearing a baby blue skull cap and jeans. He's armed with a pistol. We're going to continue to follow this story, bring you updates when we get them on Action News 5 on the digital desk or online at actionnews5.com. We're still continuing to follow the latest in the investigation into that school shooting in Nashville that happened Monday morning. The children, Haley Scruggs, William Kenny, Evelyn Deekhouse, were all killed. 3 faculty members, a total of 6 people were killed. 3 faculty members, 61-year-old Mike Hill, 60-year-old Catherine Kuntz, and 61-year-old Cynthia Peak. To give you a full perspective on what happened, and how. We're showing you video that was released by the Nashville Police Department, both of security cameras and police body cams. We want to warn you, the video is graphic and disturbing. Now, the car was driven by the shooter, 28-year-old Audrey Hale. Hale then approaches the side entrance to the school, fires gunshots into the glass door before entering. We see Hale then going room to room, searching the first floor, starting with the church office and then ending with the double doors at the end of the hallway. We then see chilling images of Hale walking past the children's ministry office with rifle in hand. Hale would fire the rifle at the end of this hallway. And then we have the body camera here released. The video shows officers clearing a classroom when they hear the gunshots, prompting them to race upstairs and then kill Hale, fatally shot there, second floor, while police were shooting through a window at arriving police cars. Now, the officers who took down the shooters, they've been released. That's Officers Rex Engelbert and Officer Michael Collazo. Engelbert is a 4-year veteran. Collazo has been with the Nashville Police Department for 9 years. And we had Action News 5's Bria Bolden in Nashville talking with various lawmakers about what to do next when it comes to mental health, when it comes to gun legislation. Here's her report.
Metro Nashville police have identified the shooter as 28-year-old Audrey Hale. Police say Hale identified as transgender and was a former student at the Covenant School. Families of children at the Covenant School in Nashville's Green Hills neighborhood rushing in panic after reports of a school shooter at the small Christian private school. The 3 students who died, just 9 years old. The adult victims were all staff members, including the headmaster.
All right, that was yesterday's piece. Bria Bolden's been there for a couple of days. We'll get you an update on the latest report from her, where she talked to Tennessee state lawmakers, coming up later in this Digital Desk broadcast. Right now, we want to go to Tennessee Governor Bill Lee. He released a statement about the school shooting. He says he understands that people are trying to get answers and trying to place blame somewhere. He says a time will come to discuss and debate policy, but not at this time.
We can all agree on one thing, that every human life has great value, and we will act to prevent this from happening again. There's a clear desire in all of us, whether we agree on the action steps or not, that we must work to find ways to protect against evil.
The governor praised the swift action by educators and law enforcement for preventing more tragedy at the Covenant School in Nashville. And stay with Action News 5, both on air and online. We're going to bring you updates as we get them, as we work together with authorities to give you those updates. In other news this morning, Shelby County Commissioner Mick Wright is now calling for Shelby County Clerk Wanda Halpert to step down. The latest setback, 2 more locations could close if a new office is not secured. Joyce Peterson has this update.
I'm calling for Clerk Halpert to step down.
Shelby County Commissioner Mick Wright says he has reached his limit with the problems plaguing the Shelby County Clerk's office. He told Action News 5 Tuesday night he's lost all faith in Clerk Wanda Halpert.
It's not anything personal or anything I look forward to doing. But it's just a pattern of behavior, and it's having dramatic consequences for the citizens.
The new office on Riverdale in Southeast Memphis was supposed to open a year ago, and now leases on the Poplar Plaza location and the Whitehaven office are set to expire. Emails obtained by Action News 5 show real estate director Rick Smith emailed Halpert about alternative locations back in September. With the Poplar Plaza lease set to expire in June, Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris gave Halpert an ultimatum: pick a location by March 24th, or the County Commission and the Shelby County District Attorney will start a dereliction of duty investigation that could lead to her ouster. Clerk Halpert says she's looking at the old Regions Bank on Quinset Perkins as a possible short-term lease. And in a letter to the Commission Chairman, Mikkel Lowry, Halpert calls the accusations against her lies, rumors, innuendos, and misrepresentations. I am an independent elected official, she wrote. The mayor is not my boss. A February email from Rick Smith said just another ping in hopes to avoid some misery, especially for the customers. I sure would like to have you in a new and more appropriate space at both properties. All I can do is remind you of the ticking clock. For Commissioner Wright, time has already run out for Clerk Halbert.
I think all the commissioners have heard it from citizens that they're experiencing long lines, long delays, and they just want us to take care of business.
And that was Joyce Peterson reporting. Clerk Wanda Halbert is scheduled to appear before the Shelby County Commission later this afternoon. She said she had no comment until after today's session. We will have a crew at that commission meeting, and we will bring you a full report later today. Of course, we'll have updates as well on Action News 5 and actionnews5.com. I want to split the screen right now and show you one of the top stories on actionnews5.com. If you go to our homepage, you will see this story. Brand new here. Germantown police searching for suspect affecting school bus routes. You can see it here. It says Germantown police searching for a suspect who allegedly stole vehicles. 4 bus routes in Germantown disrupted Wednesday morning. Officers currently in the area of Turpin's Glen Drive, Regents Walk, and Oaks subdivision. The suspect was last seen wearing a black hoodie with an orange stripe, carrying a gray and pink backpack, according to Germantown police. And this is the bus routes that are affected. Bus to Houston High School, Riverdale, Houston High, and then Riverdale that has the various numbers to know which buses are affected by all this. Again, that is one of the top stories on actionnews5.com. If you go there, here it is right there. It's the main story on our homepage. If we have any updates on that, we will certainly bring it to you. I want to tell you about the Memphis Grizzlies. They are having another banner year. They've already won their second straight Southwest Division championship. They've already secured a spot in the playoffs. And so right now their focus is on seeding in those playoffs. Last night they were taking on the Orlando Magic. And the Orlando Magic, one of the worst teams in the NBA, but the concern for the Grizzlies are all about seeding. So Ja Morant did not play in this game because of a sore thigh. So Tyus Jones started in his place. This game, the Grizzlies were up by as much as 22 in the first half. Orlando made a run late in the game, but the Grizzlies won at home, extending their best winning streak in the league now at 7 games. They've won the last 7 in a row. They have the best home streak in the NBA as well. And Xavier Tillman had a career high 20 points in the victory.
Games, you know, once we get a nice, comfortable lead, we like to take our foot off the gas. So if we can shore that up and make sure we just keep our foot on the gas throughout the whole 48, we'll be good.
Okay, so the Grizzlies go back to work tonight. They will host the LA Clippers at FedEx Forum. Tip-off begins at 7 o'clock. Former Memphis Grizzly Pau Gasol has been selected for the Basketball Hall of Fame. He won 2 NBA championships with the Lakers, and Kobe Bryant recently had his jersey retired. But of course, before he played for them, he was the very first Grizzly, very first Memphis Grizzly. Yeah, the Atlanta Hawks picked Gasol with the 3rd overall pick in 2001, but he was traded to the Grizzlies. He played 7 seasons in Memphis, averaging 19 points, 9 boards, and 476 games. Congratulations to Pau Gasol, of course, the older brother of Marc Gasol, a longtime favorite with the Memphis Grizzlies. Local faith leaders are taking action to combat violence and crime here in the Bluff City. So far, Memphis police say there have been 90 homicides in Memphis. 90. One of those is a teenager recently killed in a double homicide in Frazier. Stephanie Douglas reports. After 25 years.
Monday evening, crime tape surrounded Greenbrier Apartments in Frazier as Memphis police investigated the city's latest shooting. A woman and teenager killed.
People are frustrated.
Senior pastor Walter Green at Friendship Baptist Church across town in Klondike says the violence has shaken his community as well.
It's violence. I'm talking about crime like on almost every corner now. There's a lot of killing. We really got to reach our young people.
The violence has affected me. I do get anxiety. My husband, he doesn't let me go anywhere without him.
Green says his church is partnering with local schools, clergy, and community resources to rally and combat crime.
You know, so often we say, you know, it's the police fault. Police not doing enough policing. Well, as a church in this community, I also believe that we have a responsibility to give folk hope, and that we have to partner with others in order to help them do their jobs.
So far this year, MPD reports 90 homicides and 75 murders. That's up from this time last year when we saw 65 homicides and 54 murders. In his message,
if we don't make a stand today, we'll keep crying tomorrow.
Paul Green says he hopes this rally will be the first of many to speak truth to power in the Klondike community and across Memphis to combat crime and violence.
After 25 years, Chicago is still the one musical with everything that makes Broadway shimmy shake. A universal tale of fame, fortune, and all that jazz, with one show-stopping song after another and the most astonishing dancing you've ever seen. And guess what? It is coming back to the Orpheum next week, and we are so excited to welcome James Vessel. He is part of the ensemble, and he was also a Memphian for a short period of time, worked at Ballet Memphis for a while when he was here in Memphis. He joins us now at the digital desk. James, it's so great to talk to you. How are you? Tell me how you've been. How's Chicago? And tell us when you were in Memphis. Good morning.
Good morning. I just want to say thank you so much for having me on this morning. It is such a pleasure to be a part of this iconic show. I joined the show about a month ago, and I have been just like in awe of the cast and the talent, the crew. Everyone is just like so gracious about welcoming me into the cast. I just am enjoying my time here, going to different cities that I've been to before, haven't been to before. Getting to share the art of this show is just such a pleasure. I'm so excited to come back to Memphis. I enjoy my time in Memphis so much, especially working with Ballet Memphis as well. So I'm really, really excited that we get to stay in Memphis for a full week and do a show at the Orpheum Theater, which is an iconic theater. And I always enjoyed performing at the Orpheum. And I worked at the Orpheum for a little bit as well while I was in Memphis.
That is awesome. It's a full circle moment, I guess you could say. So tell me about this professional opportunity for you. When you tried out for the part, you got it. What was that moment like when you found out that you're joining it? Because as you say, this is an iconic presentation that so many people know about for the last 25 years, scores of awards and honors and distinctions, and now here you are, you're part of the cast.
Exactly. This process was actually like no other that I've experienced. I sent in a virtual audition where I had to do different dance numbers from the show, obviously the iconic moment of jazz, and I had to do a segment of Roxy. I had to do a singing portion and 3 short monologues. And I submitted that through my agent, and it was maybe a month and a half later when I found out that I was cast in the show. And I received the email saying that I was cast with a contract and was told, hey, you have a week to join us on tour. And so I had to pack up my life for 6 months and within a week. And I learned the show within a week as well, and was put in right away. So it's just been an amazing experience. One that I have never experienced so far. And I'm learning so much through every show, through my downtime. There's always things that I'm still learning about the show, and more further development and the characters that I'm playing and the role that I'm in for this entire segment of the show.
Tell us exactly when we're going to see you on stage, what characters are you playing, and tell us what the response has been so far on the tour.
So for the show, I open as an actor, a player in the show. I'm supporting Roxy, I'm supporting Velma, and different parts in the show. And then I come in as a reporter where we're trying to get information from Roxy throughout the show. And then towards the second act, in the second act and later in the show, I start to become the bailiff, where I am supporting the court and trying to get things moved along to get the actors, to get Roxy and Billy to get into the courtroom scene. And then I become the jury, where I am playing 6 different characters throughout the entire scene, and am reacting to the story that's being told for the very first time. So it's very interesting to go in and put on these different hats throughout each scene that I'm playing. So it's a really fun show.
That sounds fantastic, James. Tell me how your time in Memphis helped prepare you for this role.
My time in Memphis definitely prepared me for this role. While I also was dancing with Ballet Memphis, I did shows with Playhouse on the Square. So I built a theater community there in Memphis. So I'm really excited to see my theater friends as well. I did many musical theater shows while there. So I got to sing and dance and act for about 6 or 7 different shows within my time span in Memphis. So yeah, it definitely directed me into going into more of a musical theater Broadway track. And I fell in love with musical theater while I was in Memphis. Actually, my first musical in Memphis was Memphis the Musical at Playhouse on the Square. So it's like really cool that, you know, Memphis just is a part of my journey and getting into musical theater and Broadway.
That is fantastic, James. Congratulations on that. Tell us what time period, what time frame did you live in Memphis?
2015 to, I believe, 2018.
Okay, all right. There, okay. So for someone who might not know much about Chicago, the musical that's coming next week to the Orpheum, what's the best way to describe this show, this production coming?
The best way to describe this show is you have a young woman, Roxy, who is wanting to be a star and is willing to do anything possible to make that happen. And along her way, she finds people who want that same thing. And yeah, they end up getting it in the long run.
Fantastic. What's the first thing you're going to do when you have some downtime in Memphis?
Oh, definitely get barbecue. Going to Central Barbecue.
All right. Well, James, really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks so very much. And best of luck. Congratulations to you and your professional career. It's great to see you're doing so well. And looking forward to having you return to Memphis later.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
In April. Yes, absolutely. Take care of yourself. Good stuff. Okay, Andrew Douglas here in the Action News 5 Digital Desk. We got some breaking news that we told you about a few minutes ago with regards to Germantown. Germantown police searching for a suspect who reportedly stole vehicles. 4 bus routes in Germantown disrupted. We have Action News 5's Cindy Hawkins live on the scene with an update on this story. Cindy, tell us where you are and what's the latest with this. Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you, Andrew. We are in a subdivision on South Germantown Road and Mimosa Drive, and it's been a very active and rapidly changing scene. I'm going to step out of the way so I can show you. Germantown police first said that they were looking for a suspect about or less than half a mile away from this area in another subdivision that taking place, Turpin's, Glen, and Regions Walk. Again, an active scene. As we pulled up, we saw police running and searching, door knocking, asking neighbors had they seen this person that's being accused of stealing a car. In that neighborhood, police began to run, sped off, and they ended again here, South Germantown Road and Mimosa Drive. We saw a fire truck come up and an ambulance. They have said that they've captured that suspect. So right now we're waiting to see if they're going to bring that person out in handcuffs. But again, we know school bus routes were being delayed because of this. Germantown Municipal School District said they have notified parents, but again, that suspect has been captured. So there's no danger to those parents and families as of now.
So let me ask you this. This suspect is accused of stealing several cars this morning in the Germantown area. Is that correct?
Yeah, according to Germantown police, it says the suspect is responsible for multiple thefts, multiple car thefts. So not sure exactly what that entails, if that means just going inside of the cars and stealing something out of those cars. At the scene at Regions Walk, we did see a car that had a door just randomly open. So not sure if this person was just going in multiple people's cars or stole an actual car. But that person is in police custody as of now.
Okay, and this must have happened pretty early this morning, affecting some of those school bus routes. Do you have a time frame on when this was happening?
Yeah, Germantown police first notified us nearly around 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's 8:30, so they worked quickly to capture this suspect.
Okay, and I assume some of those bus routes were in that vicinity of Germantown Road, Mimosa Drive, because of the police presence. Is that right?
Right, a total of 4 bus routes, according to the Germantown Municipal School District. Most of those bus routes going to Riverdale and Houston High. So again, they did tell me that they were not issuing tardies because of this incident. So if you're going to take your kid to school after this incident, they will not be marked tardy. They do understand that this was an active investigation.
Did you come across any neighbors in that area, maybe concerned about what they're seeing?
We saw some neighbors coming out just curious, as you would be if this incident happened in your neighborhood, but no one really helping police search for this suspect. Actually, as we got on the scene, police were telling us to get back in our cars because they were afraid that we were in danger. So a lot of people just kind of watching from afar as police work to capture this suspect. I'm turning around because, again, this is a rapidly changing scene. We're waiting for police to bring out that suspect. The Memphis Fire and the Germantown Fire and Germantown Ambulance just got on scene. So we're just waiting to see when they will bring that suspect out.
Okay, and I know there's very little information being known at this time in terms of apprehending that suspect. But I see I see that ambulance there. Is there any idea if there was some sort of struggle or any indication that there was some sort of struggle to get that suspect in custody?
I'm not sure about that, Andrew. What I do know is that Germantown police were working actively. As I said, when we got to the scene that's less than a half a mile away from here, we saw police looking in ditches. They were knocking on doors, and they were running really fast, getting in their cars and speeding off, and they got to this scene pretty quickly. We followed them, and that's when they notified us that that suspect has been captured. So based on the timeline of events, they moved pretty quickly. I'm not sure if there was a struggle, but I'm sure Germantown police will keep us updated on exactly how they captured this person accused of stealing either items in cars or cars in this Germantown neighborhood.
Well, I'm sure a lot of Germantown parents and neighbors where you are, Sydney, are relieved that that suspect has been apprehended. We appreciate your reporting this morning. Thanks so very much for coming on the Action News 5 digital desk. Cindy Hawkins reporting live from Germantown this morning. We appreciate it.
Hey, come to us.
Okay, so right now let's again show you a picture outside downtown Memphis from our High Five camera. Gorgeous out there. It is expected to be another day of lots of sunshine, very crisp outside, as you can see, 44 degrees, but it will be warmer. Meteorologist Brittany Bryan has an update.
Good morning. So we woke up this morning to temperatures in the 30s. Eventually today, though, we will warm up quite a bit because we'll have sunshine. 57 degrees at noon, 64 at 3 o'clock. Temperatures still in the lower 60s at 5 and right around 60 degrees at 7. 64 degrees is the high today. Yesterday we got to 62, so we'll feel very similar. We're still just barely below that 68-degree average, but overall a nice day ahead for us. Low temperatures tonight, close to normal at about 43 degrees. It'll be clear this evening. Mostly clear tomorrow as well. At least early in the day. We'll end up with more clouds in the afternoon on Thursday and a few showers late Thursday night as our next weather system moves in. Friday, though, a 70% chance of rain in the forecast. A cold front moves through, and that's what's going to bring that high chance for rain. There's currently a 3 out of 5 for a severe weather threat. You'll notice it includes a large portion of the United States, and part of our area also under that 3 out of 5. Now, I don't necessarily think that we'll have too high of a severe weather threat in our area. Has a lot to do with the early morning rain that we'll have in the Mid-South. Instability is just not impressive with this system to me. Damaging winds would be the main concern if we did get a severe thunderstorm. Hail and tornado threat, very, very low with this one, but damaging winds can obviously still cause some issues. So let's talk timing. 7 o'clock in the morning Friday. Again, there will be some rain. There'll be showers as we go through the morning, clouds in place. Now we may dry out for a little bit, not for long. I don't think it'll be long enough to recover from that early morning rain. Right around noon, a break in those showers, temperatures in the lower to mid 70s, but already by 3 or 4 o'clock, the rain spreads in. 5 o'clock, we have widespread rain here across the entire Mid-South, but thunderstorms will be possible between 5 and midnight. There could still be some lingering storms in northeast Mississippi through midnight, but Memphis will already be clearing out, and any remaining rain will be out of here by the time you wake up Saturday morning. This is 7 a.m. No rain, and even clouds start to move out by that point. Rainfall totals will be close to an inch, could be closer to that half-inch mark in Tunica and Helena, but overall about an inch of rain will fall on Friday. And then after that, I told you the weekend is dry. 70 degrees on Saturday, 73 on Sunday, so it should be a beautiful weekend. Now, if anything changes, if any severe thunderstorm watches or even tornado watches get issued, you'll want to have our First Alert weather app. Any watches or warnings that get issued get sent straight to your phone. Plus, we post video updates on there, and we update you nonstop during the day. 64 degrees is our high today, 72 tomorrow, warming up all the way to 74 on Friday. And then I showed you those 70s over the weekend. Next week, we'll have a chance for some thunderstorms on Tuesday, may see a few showers on Monday as the weather system moves through the Mid-South next week.
Let's switch things up for just a minute here. Let's go to the state of Arkansas right now, because most people assume that worms are harmless. But check out this worm. This is considered a dangerous piece of a species, of a worm that's been spotted in Arkansas. It's called the hammerhead worm. It's been found in Greene County, according to the University of Arkansas's Division of Agriculture, and this is a dangerous species according to a number of different state leaders there. In fact, let's bring in one right now. I'm joined now by Vic Ford. He's the Senior Associate Vice President Extension for the University of Arkansas System Division of Agriculture. Mr. Ford, are you in Fayetteville? Where are you exactly?
No, sir, I'm in Little Rock.
Little Rock,
I'm
okay.
office. Yes, sir.
All right, so let's talk about this, because this, you know, I'm looking at this picture. I was looking at it earlier. I mean, it almost looks like a, you know, if you didn't know, it looked fine, but it does have that unusual head, like a hammerhead shark. Tell me more about this.
This is not really a worm as we would think about as an earthworm. This is a flatworm, and if many of us who've had basic biology, remember, flatworms are called planarias, and this is a land-based planaria. They reproduce by, primarily this one does by breaking pieces of that long tail off and forming new worms. The worm mouth and anal orifice is the same organ, so they suck it up and expel it from the same location. The mouth actually is lower down on the worm. It's not at the head. The head is a sensory organ, and there are some eye spots there. And it is a predator. It is a predator for earthworms. It's introduced from Asia. They're found in the United States now in the southern coastal Gulf states and have made their way up into Arkansas. In South Arkansas, we started seeing them about 10 years ago, and now they're making their way up to the northern part of the state. They're earthworm predators. Get no mistake about that. They are affecting the earthworm populations in the state. And what they do is, you see what this one here is doing on with this earthworm. It has a toxin in the slime, which is the same toxin that's in pufferfish. It's extremely deadly, and it paralyzes the worm, and it then literally digests the worm right there and sucks it up into the worm itself, the hammerhead worm, and goes on about its business. They can be up to maybe a couple feet long. Again, pieces of the tail break off, and that's how new worms mostly are formed. There have been 8 cases found for the planaria, but most of those worms come from those broken off segments. One of the things we do not do if we're trying to control these things is chop them up, because each piece becomes another worm. So essentially you're creating more worms if you chop them up. So what we try to do is tell people to use salt or citrus oil or even vinegar to kill them that way, and that way they don't get to make more worms by chopping them up into smaller pieces.
Okay, let me jump in here, because what you said is very like sci-fi and and almost scary in a way. So you're saying that you see this worm, and then if you were to chop the worm up, it would immediately grow kind of a head and a tail. Explain that to me.
It would essentially create another head and body, and it'll take a few days, but it'll become another worm.
Okay, that is shocking to me. I've never heard that before. So the best way, in what I'm seeing, is the best way to take care of this, if you perhaps run across this unusual worm, is what?
The best thing, we don't need to report, because we know we're not really trying to get people to let us know that they're there. But the best way to do, if you see one, is to apply salt or apply citrus oil or apply vinegar and kill the worm when you can. And I don't let pets get into it. Do not handle it. It can form a rash on people because of the toxin. And if the pets or a child eats it, it can make them sick. So it's one of those things you don't want to get, handle or get up close and personal with.
Okay, so let's talk about the environmental impact, because we know that there's a lot of agriculture in the state of Arkansas, a lot of farmers out there. Traditionally, you want worms in the soil. It helps create a healthy environment for crops, but this is a very different worm, as you mentioned. It's not really that traditional earthworm you're talking about. Give me a more in-depth response to the environmental impact of this hammerhead worm. This
is kind of we have another kind of earthworm introduced to called the jumping worm, and that's another story. But we have impact-wise, is we don't really know, and that's probably the best question. We're thinking this is primarily in moist areas. So in terms of an agriculture field, I don't think we're going to have a problem. I think it may impact some of our moist soils in, say, forest or gardens or landscape plantings and that kind of thing. I think that will be the largest impact. I'm more concerned with the direct impact on pets and humans right now, in terms of people getting into this and having a reaction or getting sick. But the impact on the earthworm population is going to be there. And we really right now don't have any good numbers for that. So I can't really give you, how many tons of soil are being turned over for after these things. But I suspect that there will be a significant impact, particularly on localized locations.
So let's talk a little bit about what happens if there is a person that comes upon this and doesn't know how to handle it properly, maybe perhaps picks it up if it's a child. What can this worm do to a person, specifically a child?
Wash it. Wash the hands. Contact is, again, that toxin, if it's ingested, can make you very sick. Depending on and how much, it could be even more serious than that. Getting it on the slime on your hands can cause a rash. The toxin can be absorbed through the skin. So I would suggest, if you handle it, you're going to put on gloves, use a hoe or something else to get rid of it. But for goodness sakes, again, do not chop the thing up. You talk about science fiction. If you work where people are exposed to planaria in basic biology, whether in high school or in college, and they'll split one down the middle and it forms two heads, or it forms pieces, complete worms from pieces. But they've also shown that planaria, when you create new planaria from cutting this off, the memories are transferred to those pieces. That's kind of more even scientific science fiction going into science fact. So those things are really devastating. They're unusual. They're something we have not had in this country. But again, don't handle them. Do not cut them up. You put salt, citrus oil, vinegar on them, and use gloves if you got to pick one up.
Yeah. So you mentioned it's in the state of Arkansas, and we broadcast to Arkansas, Mississippi, and Tennessee. Tell me if there's been any spotted in Mississippi or Tennessee.
Yes, they have been all along the Gulf Coast. It's been there for a while. And Tennessee, I have not heard of any, but I would not be surprised if they're in, say, the Memphis area from there. So they're really spread really by the horticulture industry. They're in with the rest of the root ball or in a pot and then transferred that way. And I think that's how they got into this country and how they're getting spread across the country.
Well, Vic, this has been very fascinating, and I appreciate you enlightening us on this issue and this problem, and we're just kind of getting the word out. Is there anything else that we can let our viewers know about this worm? And we already know what to do if someone comes in contact with it. Don't touch it without gloves. Don't hesitate to kill the worm. Best way to do it is in a bucket with salt, vinegar, or hot water, citrus, as you mentioned. What else can we say?
I think the thing is that we have to be careful what we bring in this country, and everything we bring in has an impact. And there are impacts with bringing this individual species into the country. And it's going to affect the earthworm populations because it is a predator. I think the best thing we can do is we find one, we get rid of it. And the long-term impact is unknown right now. So I think folks need to, be on the lookout. If you're a gardener, you see this thing, you know what to do. Get rid of it, and we'll work from there. But we don't really have any good information right now in terms of impact right now. A lot of speculation, but nothing based on good fact.
You mentioned horticulture. Does it kill plants?
It does not affect the plants. It's an earthworm predator. I mean, that's what it feeds on. That's what it's programmed to do.
Gotcha. All right, Vic Ford, University of Arkansas Division of Agriculture. Really appreciate this in-depth interview on this hammerhead worm. Thanks very much for alerting us to it. Appreciate it.
Thank you all very much for having me.
Memphis and Mid-South families reaching out to area schools wanting to know about security protocols and how they might change after the school shooting in Nashville. Parker King reports.
Superintendent Pierre Antoine works with 15 private Catholic schools in and around the Memphis area, from preschool all the way up to Christian Brothers University. Following the tragedy in Nashville, Antoine says communication is paramount during this time.
At Immaculate Conception Cathedral School in Midtown, our principal, she sent a message to parents, not only reassuring them about safety protocols, but she also spoke to what they are.
Some of those protocols at Memphis Catholic schools include locking exterior doors to outsiders and working with security companies, some with in-house security teams on site. Antoine admits that preparation sometimes isn't enough, made tragically clear by Monday's shooting at the Covenant School.
They shot their way in. The school had done everything properly, and yet they were bent upon what I'll call terrorism.
The superintendent says some schools have recently sent faculty and staff to active shooter training with law enforcement.
We're not just staying with the status quo. What we want to do is make sure that we're being proactive. But for parents, it's difficult because they want action. It's emotional time, and I certainly understand that. But at the same time, I think what we're doing right now is safe.
The coming days will be keeping that communication flowing to parents in hopes of easing their concerns here in the Memphis Diocese. For the students, Antoine notes that every school has mental health counselors in hopes of easing the trauma for them when tragedy happens so close to home. In Memphis, Parker King, Action News 5.
All right, in the wake of the Nashville shooting, members of the news media given an opportunity in Memphis to preview a pair of public events addressing safety in schools. The preview is put on by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and Active Shooter Trainers Defense Systems. The preview highlighted goals for the upcoming training sessions in April, which will increase preparedness and teach life-saving skills. This happened in East Memphis at St. Mary's School.
We continue to see the delineation between success and failure in these events is the people that are in the event knowing what to do. That is where the difference is made. It is not made with cameras and access control and SROs. Those are all great parts of the solution, but the biggest difference maker that we are finding on every event is the people in the event knowing what to do and having that skill set, and you will leave this event knowing exactly what to do. Yeah.
Well, tickets to the training workshops are free. The classes will be held back-to-back April 19th and April 20th from 6 to 8 at St. Mary's School in East Memphis. You can find a link to get your tickets on actionnews5.com. A memorial continues to grow outside of the Covenant School in Nashville to remember the 6 victims of Monday's mass shooting. Flowers, teddy bears, thoughts, prayers, embraces from the community members. 2 educators flew in from Atlanta to honor their dear friend, former colleague Catherine Kuntz, who police say was gunned down in the hallway. Monica and Jim Lee say they will remember Kuntz's special ability to work with anyone.
She's an amazing person. She's authentic, you know, she's not gonna just smile and not mean it, you know, she was just an incredible, I could tell that she was incredibly smart, and I wanted my kids to be around that.
She was an exceptionally brilliant educator, and I say that because she could work with parents, board members, faculty, preschoolers. It didn't really matter. She just made you feel like the most important person in the room.
And we want to go to Action News 5's Bria Bolden right now. She had an update talking with Tennessee lawmakers, including some from Memphis, with regards to mental health and gun legislation.
As police continue to investigate a motive for Monday's school shooting, lawmakers are back here at the Capitol, back at work. But constituents say they want answers on what they will do next on how to prevent another school shooting. Some voters took their concerns to the Capitol. Anti-gun violence advocacy group Moms Demand Action held a rally near House lawmakers, mourning the victims of Monday's shooting and questioning why shootings like this continue to happen. As the investigation unfolds, Memphis Republican John Gillespie says it's too soon to take policy actions, but says he would like to see stricter enforcement on who is eligible to purchase guns and doubling down on mental health care statewide. Meanwhile, Memphis Democrat G.A. Hardaway also wants mental health care to be more accessible, but believes voters must demand a change.
We keep on seeing over and over again, there's already federal and state laws that prohibit certain individuals from having guns and buying guns, but there's a lack of enforcement. We really need to get some more teeth into those laws and to allow, whether it be local, state, or feds, to intervene and enforce the laws that we already have on the books.
Every time we put together a task force on crime, we're trying to figure out how do we lock them up longer. We're trying to figure out how do we put more police on the streets. We're trying to figure out all of the reactions to the problem itself instead of resolving the cause of the problem.
Police say Hale was under a doctor's care before the shooting for an undisclosed emotional disorder. Police also say the 3 guns Hale brought inside of the school were purchased legally. Reporting in Nashville, Bria Bolden, Action News 5.
Okay, and families in Mississippi that are dealing with that tornado damage, central Mississippi, they are still cleaning up following last Friday night's deadly tornadoes. 21 people died across the state of Mississippi. Long road of recovery for so many people affected. So to help, the Salvation Army is accepting donations through text messages and online as well. You can text MS Tornadoes. Let me throw this up one more time. You can text MS Tornadoes to 51555, or you can visit gray.tv/relief. Your donations will help provide food, drink, shelter, and other services to so many people who need them. Again, deadly tornadoes. 21 people died in that central Mississippi area last Friday with those tornadoes. Just an awful, awful situation. Okay, after weeks of multiple U.S. banks collapsing, lawmakers are grilling federal regulators about what exactly went wrong. Members of the Senate Banking Committee held a hearing about it, and today House members will have their own hearing. Bree Jackson has an update.
Vice Chair Barr. The nation's top bank regulators on the hot seat following the recent collapse of Signature Bank and Silicon Valley Bank.
For over a year, regulators were saying to this bank, straighten up and fly right, and they never did a damn thing about it.
The risks were there, that the regulators were pointing them out, and the bank didn't take action, and they failed to do it.
Michael Barr, the vice chair for supervision at the Federal Reserve, says they're examining whether the Fed should have done more and vows accountability if there were any failures in its oversight of the banks. Senators also want federal regulators to strengthen banking rules.
Will you commit to using your authority to undo the rollbacks that your predecessor initiated and to strengthen the rules and supervision for banks with greater than $100 billion in assets?
Senators, I think you know I was a member of the board at that time and voted against those measures. And I certainly think it's appropriate for us to go back and review those actions in light of the recent episode and consider what changes.
This hearing comes after the Biden administration took unprecedented steps, including backing full deposits for the two banks so customers would not lose any money.
Well, I think we've done what we need to do executively. I feel confident things are settling out.
Regulators also reassured Americans that banks are safe. In Washington, Bree Jackson, NBC News.
You know, there's been a lot of talk recently about the demand for retired workers during the labor shortage. And we ran a survey, and there was apparently a survey of 800 retirees all across the U.S. to find out just how many are planning to go back to work and why. And apparently there was 1 in 5 are likely to go back to work this year. Let's talk more about what else this survey had to say with our career expert, Stacey Holler. Stacey, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Thank you, Andrew.
So listen, Stacey, I'm thinking about retirees and some of the reasons they're going back to work. And my first thing, just because it's been in the news recently, is the fact that maybe they've had this fixed income for many years and inflation is just blowing them out right now. Is that one of the reasons?
Absolutely, that's one of the reasons. I mean, people thought they had their plan set for retirement, and in so many ways, the world changed in the last 2 years. So everything's flipped around, but absolutely financial reasons are some of the reasons retirees are looking to go back to work.
I understand that, and I can understand why they're going back to work. It makes me sad, because I feel bad for them. They think, oh, okay, I got my nest egg, I'm ready to go and relax. What is I don't know if this survey really kind of gauged this, but what was their attitude of getting back in the workforce? Were they excited? Were they upset about it?
I'm so glad you asked that, because it's been very interesting in my practice and speaking with these folks who are going back. They're actually excited about going back. I've had several conversations in the last week. In fact, this morning I was talking to a 72-year-old retiree who said he missed working. He missed people. He missed collaboration. And I hear from many people that even if the financial reasons aren't the reason that they're retiring, they just thought it was the time to go play golf, they still want to be engaged. Most of the people I speak with are excited because they have an opportunity to go back to work on their own terms at this stage in their career. They could work flexible hours, they could work remote, they could work part-time. So it's a whole different purview for these folks.
You know, I'm interested, Stacey, maybe a little bit of a deeper dive here. I would think that maybe perhaps they're excited, and I don't know if you gauge this, but they're excited because, you know, for 2 years or so, we've been in this pandemic keeping everybody separate, and now here we are, you have an opportunity to be with people again, and so you're excited about this opportunity. Is that something you saw?
I do. It is partly because of that, for sure. But even if they're working remote, then they have some camaraderie even with remote workers. So yes, that is a part of it. I also have been speaking with a lot of CEOs in the last few weeks, and they are just bored. They're not ready to get out of the game. So I speak to a lot of people who are excited just to be back in the game. They still want to contribute. You know, older workers are much younger these days.
Very true. Very true. And I understand that they're going back, Stacey, to a different kind of field than they retired from. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it's really, they feel like it's an opportunity to do something new and different. And that's why where a little of the excitement comes now. That's not to say, Andrew, that there's a bunch of people that are working because they really need to, and they're not as excited. But I speak to an awful lot of people who want to try something new, or the CEOs want to go into consulting, or I've spoken to people who were in more of my business, recruiting for years, and now they want to do some other type of phone work. So there is a little bit of excitement to do something that maybe you always wanted to do, and you could afford to do that right now and still be engaged. So it really runs the gamut, Andrew. People have a lot of different reasons for going back, but it's not as downtrodden as you would think. These people are excited about still contributing. There is no retirement age anymore in a lot of these people's minds.
Well said, Stacey. I don't know if you have this in your survey, but you know, I'm curious as how employers are reacting to this wealth of knowledge of retirees coming back into the workforce. Any idea? Can we gauge on what they're feeling?
Yeah, those are the people who are reaching out to the retirees. I mean, there's a lot of challenges now in the workplace. Everybody's trying to figure out how to work remote. And it's very welcoming for these people to bring back folks. Some of them are going back to their old organizations part-time, and they're being asked to because they have the experience and the knowledge. They don't have to learn the basics of the workforce, and they can become mentors to other people. And they already have an established experience. So in many ways, it's easier to bring them in with their experience and knowledge that they could share.
What else have we haven't touched on, Stacey, that came out from this survey that you got? Because this is all fascinating to me, and it actually paints a more of an optimistic and upbeat view of things.
For me, from my purview, it is encouraging. I think these retirees who in the past years were very limited as to options. You were told to retire, and then maybe if you still needed to work or wanted to be engaged in work, you had to look locally because you still, at an older age, you might not want to commute 2 hours a day. So you were pretty limited in what your choices are. But the choices for retirees who want to go back to work now is much more open. And that's why you hear in me a little excitement about it, because I'm hearing people who still want to be engaged and have opportunities they didn't have before. So although a lot of them are also doing it for financial reasons, it's not like earlier in their career where they might have taken something that they didn't love because they had to. Retirees are feeling a little more wiggle room in really doing something that they like to do, and they might not have to do it full time. So they could enjoy it more on a part-time basis.
I follow 100%. Anything else, Stacey, before we let you go? This has been very informative. I like it a lot.
Well, I love preaching this and letting people know it's out there, because I do think that there are retirees out there who don't know this is a good time for them. Whether they want to get back in for financial reasons, they just want to stay engaged, they still want to contribute, or there's something they always wanted to do that they might have the opportunity to do now. So I love sharing that information, and I hope those folks out there who still want to be engaged realize they can be if they'd like to today.
Okay, Stacey Holler, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We appreciate your fact-finding mission, and take care of yourself, okay?
Thank you so much.
One of the best interviews that you're going to see on the Action News 5 digital desk has to do with food. And each and every week or so, we interview the food reporter at the Commercial Appeal. And we have got a treat for you, because Jennifer Chandler is joining us on the digital desk, and she's going to be talking about the top 10 best places for brunch, you know, either after church or with friends, having some mimosas, that sort of thing. I have to say, Jennifer, when we heard that we were talking with you about brunch, everyone in the newsroom, they lit up with their own little responses and what they liked and what they didn't like. How was it like putting together this list?
Well, actually, it was a very daunting task. So I got the help of my newsroom. So this was kind of a collaboration effort for the newsroom at the Commercial Appeal. And I had everyone share what their favorite brunch spot was, and they went out to them, and they did little mini reviews and told us what their favorite dishes are. So it was a really fun story to write. I like doing these collaboration things because sometimes they're ones that, you know, maybe weren't on my list before, that I think I need to revisit.
Well, that's awesome. There are some on the list that I recognize, and there are some that I haven't been to yet. So I'm eager to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, well, let's get going. So the first one on the list is the Beauty Shop, and that's in the Cooper Young neighborhood and has been around for a very long time, very beloved, known for its Saturday and Sunday brunches. Michaela Watts, that was her favorite pick, and she went her go-to order there is the Eggs Benedict, which you can get many different ways, but she likes the kind of traditional one that's done with brown sugar honey ham. That's what you see in that picture right there. And it has a really velvety hollandaise on it, a little arugula, you know, to give it a modern spin. And she often orders it. They have this manchego and arugula and nectarine salad that she sometimes gets on the side with it. But it's a really good brunch spot. They've got great brunch cocktails as well. So Beauty Shop, classic, fun place to go for a Saturday or Sunday brunch.
For sure.
Next on the list is Magnolia and May. And Ray Padilla, who's our digital editor, likes to go there. And this is a tiny little restaurant by Chip and Amanda Dunham that is located off of Mendenhall. If you know where Gibson's and Gus's Fried Chicken is, right there kind of at Mendenhall, it's kind of tucked away on that side street behind Gus's. And it is a true neighborhood brasserie little restaurant, and it's always fun to go there. And they do serve brunch. And Ray's favorite dish there is the tacos con Memphis, which has a fun name. But those are just a really good loaded breakfast egg taco. So Magnolia, May, and East Memphis. Have you been there before?
I have, and what I also liked about it, Jennifer, is that it's this funky place. You know, it's a little funky in there. It's got like I think the silverware that you just saw, or the plates, there just kind of lets you know, has that connection to just kind of a funky, cool spot in Memphis. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it's actually kind of feels like a midtown restaurant in East Memphis, if I dare say that.
Exactly.
Kind of has that
vibe.
I
like that. That's a good description.
Okay. Yeah. So, the next one on the list is one of my favorite, which is Edge Alley that I got to write about. And Edge Alley is located, actually that picture, we'll go back a minute. That's the liquor store. Then I'll go back to Edge Alley. So the liquor store is the picture that's up right now. And that one was with Corinne Kennedy. That was her favorite place. And that's on Broad Avenue. And it's got this really kind of cool, like Miami Cuban diner vibes inside. it's just Natalie Lieberman of Collect and Curate. It was one of her first big projects here in Memphis. It's really got a kind of cool retro feel to it. And one of their dishes, there's a signature, and it was also Corinne's favorite, is the sweet potato hash, which comes with eggs on top, and you can order a meat to go with it as well. And you can order bacon or sausage, but they have Cuban pork, and that's what Corinne recommended that she gets it with. And so that's a really kind of fun place to go. I really like their breakfast tacos. They've got fun cocktails on the menu too. I think that's kind of a requisite when you're going to brunch with friends, is to if you want to have a cocktail too, but they've got a great list of stuff on their menu. So let's go back to Edge Alley, which was one of the ones that I wrote about. So Edge Alley was this restaurant that I discovered back when the Commercial Appeals offices were in that big building, that iconic building on Union. This was kind of basically where I would go and get my lunch for a quick and easy lunch, or a quick and easy, cup of coffee, because it was literally like 1 block over. It's in the Edge district. And I kind of fell in love with it there. And it's kind of a neat, interesting space that Tim Barker has put together. He's the chef and owner, and he makes everything from scratch. I mean, when I talk about everything, he roasts his own coffee beans, for the Bloody Marys, he makes his own Bloody Mary mix. He even makes his crackers that he serves using, because he's right next to a brewery. And he uses some of their leftover, I guess it's the mash from the brewery, and he will use that to make crackers. But I have 2 go-to orders there. So if I'm feeling very hungry, I will get the steak and eggs, and they are perfectly cooked tenderloins with a perfectly cooked eggs on the side. Actually really, really great. It comes with a chimichurri sauce. I really, really love it. And then the picture, what you see right here, this is his ham and cheese quiche, which is like no other you will find in town, because he puts a layer of grainy mustard on the crust before adding the filling. And so it's kind of very reminiscent of a ham and cheese sandwich. It's kind of crazy, but it really, really works. And definitely,
I love it.
Favorite drink there, when I said that he roasts his own coffee beans, I have lots of non-alcoholic coffee drinks that I like there, like his How Now Brown Cow, which is a salted caramel coffee latte. But the one I say to get is, oh my gosh, I'm gonna draw the blank on the name right now that I'm sitting here. He has one that's, it's like, I think it's called the Good Stuff. It's a bourbon spiked coffee drink. It's a really great way to start your brunch. So moving on down the list, Sunrise Memphis is a Memphis favorite, and now they have 2 locations. They have one on the original on Jefferson and one on East Memphis. It's at Poplar, kind of near Yates. And this is Chef Ryan Trim has done this business, and it's great. This is Evan Barnes. This was his pick. He's one of our sports reporters, and he prefers the Jefferson one because that's the one he's always been going to. And his favorite dish is the Rooster, which is a fried chicken biscuit that is pretty simple and pretty good, because they make their biscuits from scratch, and there's a little bit of spice to this dish. So the fried chicken biscuit at Sunrise, if you haven't been there, try it. Again, they have a whole bunch of fun brunch cocktails on their menu too. So were any of those one of the ones you haven't been to yet? I'm curious.
I've never been to the Edge Alley, and that looks amazing. I gotta say, I mean, anyone who roasts their own coffee beans is not playing around.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot to mention, when you go, they have, you remember monkey bread when you were a kid, the kind of pull apart, with the biscuits and the cinnamon sugar that you would make. Well, he has a grown-up version of it on the appetizer menu, and it comes, and it's like in this, it almost looks like a French pastry when it comes to your table, and it comes with a cinnamon dipping sauce, and it is so yummy. It's so good. We actually, that's awesome. It's perfect for sharing. It's big enough to share, but we kind of like ate some in the beginning, and then we saved some for dessert.
Oh, nice. Now, the liquor store, you mentioned, going back to the liquor store, Cuban influence, is that throughout the menu, throughout the day, or is that just for the breakfast?
It is throughout the day. They pretty much serve breakfast all day is what they're a diner. They have some kind of lunch type dishes as well, but there's definitely kind of a Cuban vibe before. The Toros that owned it. It recently just sold to the owners of South of Beale for just bought it actually earlier this year. But the people that started, Lisa Toro, her and her husband is, I think, of Cuban descent. He's from somewhere in like that, but I should know that and I don't know that. But that's what the influences on that menu are. So it's not a Cuban restaurant per se, but it almost feels like a Miami restaurant, kind of like it has like a vibe of Southern stuff and Cuban stuff and American stuff. And I mean, it's an eclectic menu, but it's fun.
I can't wait to check it out. Those are definitely on my list.
So, okay, well, let's move on to Bartlett, another part of town, to Biscuits and Jams. And this is a favorite spot of mine as well. Dima Amara wrote about it. And Dima is a vegetarian. And so I always love to include her in a story because I know there's so many vegetarians and vegans in Memphis now. And you're always looking for an option of where to go. And she says that Biscuits and Jams is one of her places to go that she can find something delicious to eat. And she likes the Blueberry Hill lemon blueberry waffle, which you see there, which is light and fluffy and flavorful. It comes in a traditional one and can be ordered vegan as well. Many of the waffles and the pancakes on Biscuits and Jams menu can be ordered in as a vegan version. And she gets a side of vegan sausages to go with it. And it's really, really good. Monique Williams is the owner there. They have a fun brunch cocktail menu. I'll give you a sneak preview for Easter. They're doing peep-teenies with marshmallow peeps for Easter. But she has a breakfast eggs, like a Benedict that has like a crawfish, shrimp. I don't want to say it's an étouffée, but it's just, the sauce is so good. It's like, I think she calls it her Creole Benedict. That's one of my favorite dishes there. But if you haven't been to Biscuits and Jams and Bartlett, you need to check it out. It opened, I feel like it opened sometime around 2020. It could have opened in 2019, right before the pandemic, but it was sometime around there. So it hasn't been around very long. Next on the list is a Memphis classic, Owen Brennan's. I mean, you can't really talk about brunch in Memphis without Owen Brennan's because they have that huge brunch buffet spread that is over the top, that has, omelets made to order, which you have to give a shout out to Shorty, the omelet maker. His real name is Robert Fisher. So maybe go up to him one day and say, "Hi, Robert," and you'll surprise him because everyone calls him Shorty. But he is just always puts on such a great show when making omelets there, and they're delicious. But they'll have, you can get it with crawfish étouffée on top. There's boiled shrimp. There's sometimes raw oysters. There's you name it, it's on this brunch buffet, and it's only on Sundays. And that's something to remember. And they no longer take reservations. So it is first come, first serve. So if you're going right after the church rush gets there, you may have to wait a minute. It's totally worth it. Order a cocktail and enjoy yourself outside on the patio while you wait for your table. But I always tell people to either pretty much go early as your best bet, or you can go later. But if you're hitting there around 12:15, just know that you might have a little bit of a wait. Next on the list is something a little different than when people don't necessarily think of pizza for brunch, but Hog and Hominy is one of my favorite places to go. They do have a bunch of brunch items on their menu, but when I go there, I always go for the pizza. And they have two pizzas that are very kind of brunchy. The one you see here is the red eye that has that perfectly poached runny egg that when you cut into it on top. They also have a pizza called the Pruitt that has scrambled eggs on top. I mean, who would have thought? It is actually really, really good. You can start with things like they have sausage balls with Tiny Bomb mustard dipping sauce. And, I always get the crab claws, which come in this like buttery garlic sauce. And here is the insider trick. When you finish the crab claws and they come to clear that plate, you say, "No way, Jose, keep that plate here." And what you do is you save that garlic butter and you dip the crust from their pizzas into the garlic butter. And it is so good. Just trust me.
Wow. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, and fans of Gray Canary will be glad to know that they used to be known at their brunch. This is all owned by the Andrew Michael restaurant group. Gray Canary was known for these kind of like, they had these big punch bowls that they serve for brunch. They have moved that over to Hog and Hominy now. So the punch bowls are still in Memphis. They've just moved from downtown to East Memphis. So if you're going with a group, consider ordering one of their punch bowls. It's kind of a fun thing to do. Now, moving down our list is another Memphis staple, Brother Juniper's over by the University of Memphis. I mean, I don't even know how long, I should have looked up how long that restaurant has been around, but it is a tried and true classic. Always fun. Does not take reservations either. And, but it's a fun, when you're standing there and you're waiting, it's a very casual place, and it's always a good vibe, even if you have to wait 15, 20 minutes for a table. So one of our new photographers, Chris Day, this was his pick, and he says the sausage gravy and biscuits is his favorite thing. He says, that's such a Southern thing, and he says that they do it perfectly. Their biscuits are awesome. So if you want a very casual brunch experience, head over to Brother Juniper's. They're also known for their open face omelets that are so good. They've got pretty much everything breakfast on the menu. So definitely Brother Juniper's. Okay, and then we're going to round out to the last one, which is one I have not been to. But Gina Butkovich, who covers our DeSoto County coverage, she picked a restaurant that was in South Haven. And I have to giggle because I have had a mimosa bong or a mimosa tower. They call them bongs. I've heard them called towers before, as you see in this picture. But the 10th Inning Sports Bar and Grill has that. And I don't know if any place else in Memphis does. One of my daughters went to school in Colorado, and there was a restaurant in Boulder that had these giant mimosa things, and I would take her and maybe 6 or 7 of her friends out, and we would drink those. Her senior year, of course, when she was over 21. But it's kind of a fun, casual thing to do with friends is to go and have a mimosa bong at 10th Inning Sports Bar and Grill. And she says the food is good too. So I'm going to have to add that to my list and probably arrange for a designated driver.
That looks amazing. Wow. Saying 10th inning, you knocked that out of the park there, Jennifer Chandler. Once again.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, one of the reasons I think of spring, and I was thinking, Easter is coming up, and so that kind of got me on the brunch mode. So that's why we and I know there are places that should have been on this list, but we had to limit it to 10, and because otherwise we'd be the entire paper talking about brunch. But check out on Friday my list of places doing Easter brunch specials. We'll publish online at commercialappeal.com. So if you're thinking of on the fence of where you want to go for Easter brunch, all of these will be perfect. But I also have a list of places that are doing special menus, or some are doing prefix menus. There are a few restaurants that are not normally open for brunch that will be open for brunch on Easter. So definitely check out that story too if brunch is your favorite thing, and especially for Easter.
And that's what we call in the industry a tease. Jennifer Chandler, we appreciate it so much. Each and every time you come on, that brunch list looks phenomenal. Thanks so much. Again, Commercial Appeal, commercialappeal.com/food. Jennifer, thanks.
Great. Bye.
Good morning. So we woke up this morning to temperatures in the 30s. Eventually today, though, we will warm up quite a bit because we'll have sunshine. 57 degrees at noon, 64 at 3 o'clock. Temperatures still in the lower 60s at 5 and right around 60 degrees at 7. 64 degrees is the high today. Yesterday we got to 62, so we'll feel very similar. We're still just barely below that 68-degree average, but overall a nice day ahead for us. Low temperatures tonight, close to normal at about 43 degrees. It'll be clear this evening. Mostly clear tomorrow as well. At least early in the day. We'll end up with more clouds in the afternoon on Thursday and a few showers late Thursday night as our next weather system moves in. Friday, though, a 70% chance of rain in the forecast. A cold front moves through, and that's what's going to bring that high chance for rain. There's currently a 3 out of 5 for a severe weather threat. You'll notice it includes a large portion of the United States. and part of our area also under that 3 out of 5. Now, I don't necessarily think that we'll have too high of a severe weather threat in our area. Has a lot to do with the early morning rain that we'll have in the Mid-South. Instability is just not impressive with this system to me. Damaging winds would be the main concern if we did get a severe thunderstorm. Hail and tornado threat, very, very low with this one, but damaging winds can obviously still cause some issues. So let's talk timing. 7 o'clock in the morning Friday. Again, there will be some rain. There'll be showers as we go through the morning, clouds in place. Now we may dry out for a little bit, not for long. I don't think it'll be long enough to recover from that early morning rain. Right around noon, a break in those showers, temperatures in the lower to mid 70s, but already by 3 or 4 o'clock, the rain spreads in. 5 o'clock, we have widespread rain here across the entire Mid-South, but thunderstorms will be possible between 5 and midnight. There could still be some lingering storms in northeast Mississippi through midnight, but Memphis will already be clearing out, and any remaining rain will be out of here by the time you wake up Saturday morning. This is 7 a.m. No rain, and even clouds start to move out by that point. Rainfall totals will be close to an inch, could be closer to that half-inch mark in Tunica and Helena, but overall about an inch of rain will fall on Friday. And then after that, I told you the weekend is dry. 70 degrees on Saturday, 73 on Sunday, so it should be a beautiful weekend. Now, if anything changes, if any severe thunderstorm watches or even tornado watches get issued, you'll want to have our First Alert weather app. Any watches or warnings that get issued get sent straight to your phone. Plus, we post video updates on there, and we update you nonstop during the day. 64 degrees is our high today, 72 tomorrow, warming up all the way to 74 on Friday. And then I showed you those 70s over the weekend. Next week, we'll have a chance for some thunderstorms on Tuesday. May see a few showers on Monday as the weather system moves through the Mid-South next week.
All right, when it comes to cholesterol and heart health, you may have heard from doctors in recent years that you got to keep the low levels of the bad cholesterol, the LDL, low, and then the high levels of HDL, the good cholesterol, high. But in this Best Life report, there was one man who said the good cholesterol level just wasn't good enough. Watch.
41-year-old Marcus Wright eats right, and he's been active his whole life. But at age 27, after finishing a long run, Wright felt pressure in his chest. When it didn't go away, he drove himself to the hospital. And after a quick test, even the ER doctor was shocked.
He was like, dude, you're having a heart attack. And I'm like, stop playing. Because I'm literally talking to you. Like, I'm not. Because my version of a heart attack is, and he said, no, you're having a heart attack and we need to admit you.
Enter cardiovascular researcher Sarah Koenig and her colleagues. They had identified a rare genetic mutation that affects how so-called good cholesterol works in the body.
We did whole genome sequencing and we identified variants in the gene SCARB1.
The researchers asked Wright if they could test his DNA, and he agreed.
So the specific gene mutation that he has resulted in basically a non-functional good cholesterol. So even though it was there, it wasn't doing its job.
Koenig and her colleagues are now screening hundreds of existing drugs to see if any might work as a therapy for people with this genetic mutation. In the meantime, Marcus is proud of the role he's playing in the study of genes and cholesterol.
My situation helps them in the future. It's all worth it.
All right, the Food and Drug Administration says they now have a plan in place to make sure the U.S. supply of baby formula stays constant and safe. The plan includes making sure the formula industry can identify risks to supply chains, create plans to make any potential disruptions less severe. The FDA will also expedite reviews of pre-market submissions for new infant formula products, as well as expand and improve training for investigators who inspect manufacturers. Tickets for the St. Jude Dream Home giveaway now on sale. They're selling fast. If you reserve your tickets between now and April 14th, you could win a new car. Your choice of a new Honda Civic Sport or a Nissan Kicks SV, courtesy of Wolf Chase Honda, Wolf Chase Nissan. That's in addition to your chance to win the Dream Home, of course. That's worth almost $600,000, 3-bedroom, 3.5 baths. Call the number on your screen there, 1-800-224-6681, or go to dreamhome.org and get your ticket today. Good Good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas here in the Action News 5 digital desk. Caring for a loved one with a disability or with special needs certainly is rewarding, but it also comes with great personal sacrifice. That's according to the latest Fidelity Investments study. And let's talk about ways to keep your head above water during a challenging and difficult time. We have Stacey Watson now, who is joining us. She is the Senior Vice President of Life Events Planning at Fidelity Investments. Stacey, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you being here. So how do we keep our head above water? I mean, caregiving is so difficult. It's so challenging for someone who doesn't have special needs or who doesn't have a disability. What's the best method or mind space you can be in when those challenging occurrences happen?
Yeah, well, you know, it's funny. In our survey, we actually asked caregivers for their tips, and they gave us 3 things. They said, first of all, don't go it alone. Caregivers are often reluctant to ask for help, but they said to assign family members specific roles, including someone who can stand in for you when you need a break. They also said to practice and make time for self-care, because 7 in 10 caregivers say they neglect their own needs. But that little bit of consistent self-care can really prevent burnout. And then they also said to leverage people who have been there and done that. There are a lot of online and local community groups that can be a great source of information.
You know, I remember when my father-in-law lived with us the last 5 years of his life. He had dementia. It was very, very challenging for my wife. We had small kids at the time. And I think one of the hardest parts was that she didn't have that kind of support group. She was an only child. She really didn't. And I think if she had that support group, it would have been better for her. What about the misconceptions out there for future caregivers who learn the hard way when it comes to caregiving?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear about that. It can be so challenging, and sounds like you know that all too well. The biggest misconception that people have is that time is on your side, because 2/3 of future caregivers think that they'll have at least 3 years to prepare. But current caregivers tell us that they had little to no notice. And I know for me, that was the case when my dad died. I took over as guardian for my brother who has schizophrenia, and I was definitely playing catch up. So if you know that you're going to be a caregiver in the future, the time to plan is really now. And you can do things like start building your support network or developing a family communication plan, or even looking into available government benefits and resources.
I know that Fidelity Investments did this American Caregivers Study. What are some of the top concerns that caregivers have out of this study?
Well, the biggest concern is, what happens when I'm no longer able to care for my loved one? And it's worrisome because it really feels like it's out of your control. And at Fidelity, we help families with this all day, every day. And we always stress the value of creating a plan, because that's the way to actually make sure that your wishes are known. And that brings peace of mind. And that includes everything like identifying your future care team and even figuring out a financial strategy for their future. We have lots of resources and helpful checklists available at fidelity.com/special needs planning.
Sorry about that, Stacey. My mic wasn't working. How do the events of the pandemic, and especially those over the last year, how does that affect and impact caregiving, especially those with special needs?
Well, the pandemic did make some challenges easier, like work flexibility, but then it intensified others. And caregivers tell us that they feel even more isolated now, and 24% don't see that ending anytime soon. And the job is it's so hard already. And as we say, the caregivers often are reluctant to ask for help. But my message is that asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. And the other thing I would say is that if you know someone who is a caregiver, proactively help them. Run an errand, drop off groceries, don't ask, just do, because simple acts can really make a big impact.
Where's the best place to find support groups? Is it Facebook groups? Is there other, nonprofits out there that can help caregivers just have that support?
There are a lot of groups out there. Yes, Facebook groups, local groups, community groups. And we actually have curated a list of different kinds of groups that you can access at fidelity.com/special needs planning.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other tips and useful ways, great ideas on caregivers to help them maybe lessen some of the stress out there?
The other thing I would say is that if you do have an employer, check with your employer about any benefits that they may have to offer. There's so many Americans now that are taking care of loved ones, and a lot of employers know that and are looking to help out, either to find resources or to make accommodations. So that's a good place to start.
Great. And where can people get more information on caregiving and just to get help? I think you mentioned the address.
Yes, visit fidelity.com/special needs planning.
Okay, Stacy Watson, Senior VP Life Events Planning at Fidelity Investments. Thank you so much. I really think that this helps a lot of our viewers out there just kind of know that they're not alone and know that there's resources out there to help. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, I want to tell you about this, a colon cancer awareness event. That is happening. Let's show it one more time here. It is happening Thursday, March 30th. That's tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the evening. Bartlett United Methodist Church, 5676 Stage Road. It is free and it is open to the public. I'm joined now by Dr. Paul Johnson, colorectal surgeon, surgical oncologist with Methodist Cancer Institute. Dr. Johnson, how are you? Good morning.
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. So tell me more about this event that's happening tomorrow at 6.
Yes. So as we know, it's colorectal cancer awareness month, and we want to make an emphasis on educating the public about colon and rectal screening, because that's the most important way to prevent cancer, to treat cancer, and to beat colon cancer. So the event is going to specifically target patients who are uninsured. It's open to everybody, but we want all those patients who are uninsured or underinsured to come on out, learn more about colon screening, and we're going to give away coupons for free test kits that they'll be able to check their risk of colon and rectal cancer.
And Dr. Johnson, my understanding is that colorectal cancer is one of those cancers that if you catch it early, you're in much better shape compared to by the time symptoms appear. Is that right? Can you explain that?
That is absolutely correct. Colon cancer, if we catch it in its very earliest stages, the 5-year survival is as high as over 90%. But if we catch it when it's spread to organs far away, the 5-year survival drops down to 14%. So because we can use colonoscopy as a way to decrease, either catch the cancer early or remove those abnormal growths called polyps and decrease that cancer risk, it's important that we emphasize the importance of coming out for screening. And I do want to emphasize quickly that the screening age for those who cannot make it is 45. It's no longer 50.
Right, 45 and up, and I understand that you're trying to get people who are uninsured. And tell me what else. I understand you're going to have a translator there too, right?
We will have translator services. We will have nutrition services, because we know that there's a link between diet and colon cancer. We'll also have resources for smoking cessation, because smoking is pretty much the worst thing that we can do for any cancer, rather. It's the worst thing for the body. So we'll have resources that will emphasize smoking cessation, and we're going to have a panel presentation. So we're going to have primary care, gastroenterology, myself as a colon and rectal surgery, and also a hematology oncologist who any questions along the gamut of colon and rectal care, you'll have a specialist who's able to answer those questions.
Okay, and have you done this kind of thing before in the past? And if so, how many people show up? I mean, is it going to be a big line? Give us an idea.
I'm actually new to the Memphis area. This is my, I just came in this, I'm coming up on my year anniversary. So it's my first time participating. Of course, Methodist is a strong advocate for community outreach. So there's been events like this in the past, but this is my first one. I hear that they're pretty well attended, but this one's a live event, and we were previously doing a lot of web events. So I'm excited to see what the turnout will be. I hope there will be a line because I want as many people to be educated as possible.
Okay, once again, we want to show everybody the flyer here. This is an awareness event. And to register, you want to visit methodisthealth.org/colon. I think we touched on everything, Dr. Johnson. Is there anything else you wanted to mention before we let you go?
Speak to your primary care physician if you have them. If you have any questions about your personal health risk, remember colon cancer, preventable, beatable, and treatable.
Okay, Dr. Paul Johnson, colorectal surgeon, surgical oncologist with the Methodist Cancer Institute. We appreciate your time. Good luck at the event tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at Bartlett United Methodist Church. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good morning. So we woke up this morning to temperatures in the 30s. Eventually today, though, we will warm up quite a bit because we'll have sunshine. 57 degrees at noon, 64 at 3 o'clock. Temperatures still in the lower 60s at 5 and right around 60 degrees at 7. 64 degrees is the high today. Yesterday we got to 62, so we'll feel very similar. We're still just barely below that 68-degree average, but overall a nice day ahead for us. Low temperatures tonight, close to normal at about 43 degrees. It'll be clear this evening. Mostly clear tomorrow as well, at least early in the day. We'll end up with more clouds in the afternoon on Thursday and a few showers late Thursday night as our next weather system moves in. Friday, though, a 70% chance of rain in the forecast. A cold front moves through, and that's what's going to bring that high chance for rain. There's currently a 3 out of 5 for a severe weather threat. You'll notice it includes a large portion of the United States, and part of our area also under that 3 out of 5. Now, I don't necessarily think that we'll have too high of a severe weather threat in our area. Has a lot to do with the early morning rain that we'll have in the Mid-South. Instability is just not impressive with the system to me. Damaging winds would be the main concern if we did get a severe thunderstorm. Hail and tornado threat, very, very low with this one, but damaging winds can obviously still cause some issues. So let's talk timing. 7 o'clock in the morning Friday. Again, there will be some rain. There'll be showers as we go through the morning, clouds in place. Now we may dry out for a little bit, not for long. I don't think it'll be long enough to recover from that early morning rain. Right around noon, a break in those showers, temperatures in the lower to mid 70s, but already by 3 or 4 o'clock, the rain spreads in. 5 o'clock, we have widespread rain here across the entire Mid-South, but thunderstorms will be possible between 5 and midnight. There could still be some lingering storms in northeast Mississippi through midnight, but Memphis will already be clearing out, and any remaining rain will be out of here by the time you wake up Saturday morning. This is 7 a.m. No rain, and even clouds start to move out by that point. Rainfall totals will be close to an inch, could be closer to that half-inch mark in Tunica and Helena, but overall about an inch of rain will fall on Friday. And then after that, I told you the weekend is dry. 70 degrees on Saturday, 73 on Sunday, so it should be a beautiful weekend. Now, if anything changes, if any severe thunderstorm watches or even tornado watches get issued, you'll want to have our First Alert weather app. Any watches or warnings that get issued get sent straight to your phone. Plus, we post video updates on there, and we update you nonstop during the day. 64 degrees is our high today, 72 tomorrow, warming up all the way to 74 on Friday. And then I showed you those 70s over the weekend. Next week, we'll have a chance for some thunderstorms on Tuesday, may see a few showers on Monday as the weather system moves through the Mid-South next week.
Okay, young athletes in the city of Germantown now have 3 brand new turf fields at Cameron Brown Park. Players will now be able to play the fields rain or shine. Of course, parents are happy to know that the young athletes will have cleaner uniforms because these are synthetic fields. So the city says it's long overdue. It's a huge project, and players of all ages excited to take the field for the very first time.
Came one day as a city team, and we walked these fields, and we had a certain amount of pride that we had pretty good ball fields, but we walked around, we saw they were a little bit tired and they needed some refreshment. And when we started to peel that onion back a little bit, we realized that they needed a little bit more than just some refreshment. They needed an overhaul.
Okay, so those fields are now open and ready for play. One of the few positives of the increased inflation, a record high cost of living adjustment to millions of Americans with Social Security benefits. Many people not thinking that has any benefit in terms of increased inflation, but that is matching that in increased inflation. Rachel DePompa talked with an expert about ways to make extra money with the sky-high inflation that we are all dealing with work for you.
This year's Social Security cost of living increase was a record 8.7%. Michael Joyce with the financial firm Agili says it was one of the few good side effects of record inflation that we've all faced. Joyce says if you are able to, you should try to set aside some of that extra money each month, maybe in a savings account.
You do want to put some money aside because you're not likely to get this kind of increase again next year unless inflation ramps back up.
He says redo your budget, see where you can pay less or save to make those extra dollars in your Social Security work for you. And if you need every single dollar of that extra money because of your financial situation, that's okay too.
If you desperately need it, I think you'll probably be spending it, but don't forget that next year's increase will be a little bit lower in all likelihood, and I would put some away in a bank account.
The cost of living increase is raising the average monthly retirement benefit by about $146. Joyce says even if you could just set aside $50 of that each month, it could add up quickly in a savings account. With This Watch in Your Wallet, I'm Rachel DePompa.
State is facing a lawsuit, state of Tennessee, over the passage of the drag performances bill in public. Action News 5's Walter Murphy explains.
It's harmful to minors. I mean, this fits into, again, what we've already had in our law for decades.
Tennessee State Representative Chris Todd defended a bill that Governor Lee signed into law back in February. The law will result in criminal charges for anyone who participates in a public performance by a male or female impersonator in the presence of a minor. The penalty for a first offense is a misdemeanor charge. The second offense would be a felony.
Now, this is directly aimed at the drag community as a whole, but it's really unclear what exactly the law means.
Now, Friends of George's, a Memphis-based theater troupe of drag performers, is taking the state to court, filing a federal lawsuit for what they call a brazen attack on their First Amendment rights.
And we think that this inhibits our ability and our free speech to present our art form.
Michael Winter Cole says Friends of George's does a lot of good work for a lot of people in Memphis and the surrounding areas. All proceeds raised from their shows go to other nonprofit organizations. But he also says the fight against this law is about more than Friends of George's and drag performances overall.
We don't see ourselves in the way that they've painted us, and if they limit our right to free speech or free expression, where does it stop? Does it stop with just us, or does it continue on down the line?
Companies are effectively practicing medicine by deciding what gets covered and when, but those same companies not being held to the same standards. Patients have few options to fight back if delays affect their health, even if they go to court. Here's Lee Zurich with permission to practice.
Frustrating now. At the time, the anger was, I can't even explain it, you know, even on her part.
Val Valentini says his health insurer failed his family. A few years ago, the former New York City police officer's wife, Kathleen, was suffering from hip pain, and doctors wanted an MRI to investigate a suspicious mass that turned up in an X-ray, but insurance denied the request.
So her doctor told her, I want you to get an MRI because I feel like this is what you need. And then the insurer, who never saw her, said, no, you're not getting it.
That's exactly it.
It took 6 weeks of appeals, but she finally got the MRI, which confirmed bone cancer. But doctors said the delay in diagnosis meant instead of chemotherapy, Kathleen needed a significant amputation first.
She suffered for no reason.
In November of 2020, she lost her battle.
They failed her so miserably, and from beginning to end.
Kathleen's MRI needed approval to be covered in a process called prior authorization, which is when doctors submit a request to the insurance plan and it decides if it will provide coverage. often based on whether the company thinks the test or treatment is necessary. Justin Williams worked for a major health insurance company for almost a decade. His team processing electronic faxes of requests from doctors as they came in.
So every one of those faxes coming in would be someone's hospitalization, somebody's medical equipment, somebody's treatment.
Williams says over time, bosses pushed his team to focus on new and different duties. The queue of unprocessed fax requests backed up into the thousands, often pushing each prior authorization to the maximum amount of time.
It basically became clear to me that the primary function of the insurance company was not so much getting things done in a timely fashion.
Part of what makes the process so hard to navigate for providers and patients, not all insurers have the same rules. In our analysis of nearly 100 policies, prior authorization requirements for the same service varied company to company and sometimes state to state. We tried to interview representatives from the insurance industry for this story. A political advocacy association representing health insurers refused to make someone available. But in 2018 testimony to Congress, the group says prior authorization has been effective in addressing overuse and misuse of tests and procedures.
With prior authorization, our members analyze whether a treatment is safe and effective for a particular patient based on the best available clinical evidence.
By making these decisions, people like Val Valentini and his attorney allege insurance companies are actually practicing medicine. The family even tried to sue their insurer for medical malpractice. But the case got dismissed because in New York, as in most states, there are no laws holding insurance companies to the same standard as doctors.
What they're doing is disgusting, and it's getting worse and worse, it seems.
With uncertainty with the economy, many Americans are feeling concerned about their finances. Rachel DePompa spoke with an expert about how you can take control of your budget during these stressful economic times.
A new survey by NerdWallet found 75% of Americans do not feel confident about their finances for 2023. More than half of Americans say the current state of the U.S. economy makes them feel worried, while 44% feel stressed out.
All of the uncertainty about the economy, inflation, rising interest rates, it means that people are experiencing a lot of stress and strain. And that means that it's a really good time to take a really close look at your budget.
Kim Palmer is a personal finance expert with NerdWallet. She says look back at where your money has gone over the last year so you can make a good choice on where to cut back. Set your goals for the year and put reminders in your phone to check on those goals in a few months.
We can't control things like inflation, but we can set goals and also take other steps, like take some time before you make any big purchases to really comparison shop, think through how much house can I actually afford? How long will it take me to pay off debt? At NerdWallet, we have a ton of resources and calculators to help you kind of run through all of those numbers.
Palmer says comparison shopping takes effort, but putting that time in can actually save you hundreds of dollars a year. Start with your car insurance. Instead of just letting it roll over each year, actually look online or call around and get new quotes. She says this is also a great time to make a plan to tackle your high interest debt like credit cards. Make a plan to pay down a card or even pay it off. With this, Watching Your Wallet, I'm Rachel DePompa.
Well, there are 20 different craft breweries in Memphis. This morning's 5-star story is about one of them. Ghost River Brewery has deep roots in Memphis. Kim Clark has more.
The Ghost River meanders through more than 2,000 acres of Fayette County bottomland forests, cypress swamps, and marshes. Conservationists consider it the crown jewel of the Wolf River, which helps recharge the Memphis Sand Aquifer that provides Memphians with some of the sweetest water in the world.
The secret to the good beer is the water, because it's the natural water table here that creates the actual craft beer that we make today.
Bob Keski is the owner of the brewery, named after the Ghost River. Every can from Ghost River Brewing Company is stamped with a cypress tree, like those found in the river's wetlands. Keski bought the brewery, in operation on South Main since 2007, 3 years ago.
Born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which used to be the beer capital of the world. So beer is my thing.
Owning a brewery was new for the businessman, but thanks to the pandemic, he had time to learn.
Now I'm deep into it.
He opened a second location in July of 2021, this time on Beale Street, using his other business, Supply Chain Solutions, to help get it up and running.
We had old semi-trailers that were no longer roadworthy, so I decided to tear all the flooring, the wood flooring out of it, and repurpose it, sand it and repurpose it. So all the wood you see in the bar, both at Maine and here at Beale, and the outdoor stage is made from old semi-trailer wood, including the chairs that I'm sitting on right now.
Ghost River Brewing Company has a number of beers to choose from inside the brewery and in stores, with names like Zippin' Pippin, Grindhouse, and Rocket 88. There's even a specialty brew called Brunch Please, reminiscent of buttermilk blueberry pancakes.
On tap currently we have 12 that are on tap. We add another 4 that are packaged in cans, sell at retail. We try to make a new beer every 2 weeks.
As for why Keskey decided to open another location so close to the first one on Maine,
there's 2 reasons. The Maine brewery is a bigger production facility with a traditional tap room. We decided that we wanted to put our brewery and the name, the Ghost River name, in a very popular area of Memphis where people can walk to. And we're on the side of Beale that has kind of been forgotten over the years. So we're on the east end or towards 4th Street part of Beale. To try to liven this part of Beale, it's everything. It's a sports bar, it's a family venue, it's a music venue.
As for food, it's there too, but Keskey outsourced that side of the business to New Wing Order.
So New Wing Order was a food truck company, very popular, and I placed them in here in the first brick and mortar restaurant.
Ghost River on Beale is an official Green Bay Packers bar, and you'll find a lot of Packers paraphernalia on the walls.
I brought my home to Memphis.
Don't get it twisted though. Keskey may be a Memphis transplant since 2010, but he loves this city.
We're big supporters of the Tigers as well. We go to Tiger games. We're actually formal partners with 9OFC and the Redbirds, where we actually have a partnership with them. We're massive support. Season ticket holders of the Grizzlies, have been for 11 years. Al Capone comes and does his whip that trick thing on the stage before every game.
So, be it South Maine or Beale, Keskey stakes his reputation on his beer and the atmosphere, and all are welcome.
So people should expect to come in there and be in an environment that is open, diverse, friendly, and they get a choice of both worlds, quiet or vibrant.
Ghost River Brewing Company, showcasing craft brews using the natural resources that make us proud to call this place home. Kim Clark, Action News 5.
So let's switch gears right now and let's talk about seasonal allergies. Do you get it in the fall and spring? I certainly do. I think actually the spring is worse for me. Well, just like humans, dogs can suffer from seasonal allergies as well. They have all kinds of signs that can kind of give you a hint that they're dealing with it. Scratching, chewing, licking. It can be rough on dogs. Get it? Rough? Rough on dogs? All right, let's talk more about this before I get booed out there. I got Dr. Dana Liska. She's a veterinary dermatology specialist at Zoetis. Is that right, doctor?
You have it right, Andrew.
Good, good. Well, listen, I appreciate you joining us. Tell us what exactly what kind of seasonal allergies that dogs have and what are their triggers?
Absolutely. You know, you really created a great introduction saying that you suffer from allergies in the fall and the spring. And I imagine that you are sneezing, sniffling, maybe itchy eyes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So think about those same things can happen in my patients seasonally. But what they do is they show their allergies most oftentimes in their skin. And what that usually looks like in the beginning is that they're itchy in their skin. Left untreated, we could get to some bigger problems like secondary infections and hair loss.
I was going to say, it'd be interesting to kind of see in terms of what happens to dogs when things are left untreated. And I understand there's some skin allergies involved too when it comes to seasonal allergies. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, if we're talking specifically about seasonal allergies, I think of those as being the things in the environment that cause that itch and inflammation in the dog skin. And I think your viewers will appreciate this and it will resonate with them because it is the same thing. It's the pollens outside. It's the weeds, the trees, the grasses, the molds, house dust mite. Those are all things that go into causing that seasonal allergy.
So let's talk now about the signs that dog owners should be looking for, especially this time of year over the next 3 weeks, to see if their dog is one of those that suffer from seasonal allergies.
Absolutely. I imagine it's starting to warm up down there in the Memphis area, just like it is here in Dallas. And while we relish that warm up, it does bring the allergies out. And so what I want your viewers to think about is just recognizing that their dogs might lick or scratch or just even do a little bit of chewing, and that's natural. But when they sense that it's excessive, so it could be scratching, rubbing, rolling, biting, chewing, ear scratching, head shaking, all of those things can be a symptom of allergy. And I want your viewers to think, if my dog is having problems in its skin, I've got to get it in to see its veterinarian.
So we've kind of identified the problem here. Let's talk about solutions, the best way to relieve a dog, perhaps a dog's itch.
Absolutely. Do not delay. Get your dog in to see its veterinarian. Your dog's veterinarian is the best person to assess the skin at that time, maybe do some very simple, non-invasive tests, and then be able to sit down and talk to you about options for therapy. And that's the beauty of the modern medicine era that we live in, that there are options. One of the options that we offer at Zoetis that we are so very proud of is an FDA-approved therapy for dogs with itchy skin, and it's called Apoquel. And what I appreciate so much about it is that it starts working within 4 hours to relieve that itchy, inflamed skin, and also helps control that itch within 24 hours.
You know, we broadcast to thousands of people that tune into the Digital Desk each and every weekday morning. Is there, and I'm sure there's plenty of dog owners out there, anything else you want to say to the dog owners to perhaps remember? And another question I have, is there something like maybe a shampoo that can offer some relief?
Yeah, absolutely. So topical therapy is really important with patients with skin disease. Sometimes when patients have skin infections, though, they need a very specific type of shampoo. And so again, it kind of just brings me back to that idea of if there's a problem in the dog's skin, get that dog in to see the veterinarian so the veterinarian can make that assessment and decide what shampoo would be most appropriate. And again, also what therapies would be most appropriate for the itch and inflammation.
Okay, Dr. Dana Liska, a veterinary dermatologist specialist at Zoetis. We really appreciate the deep dive into this and really opening our eyes to seasonal allergies affecting everybody in your household, including our four-legged family members. Thanks so very much.
Absolutely. Hey, Andrew, can I share one more thing? Just that deep dive. I would love for your viewers to take that deep dive and go to itchingforhelp.com.
Good morning. So we woke up this morning to temperatures in the 30s. Eventually today, though, we will warm up quite a bit because we'll have sunshine. 57 degrees at noon, 64 at 3 o'clock. Temperatures still in the lower 60s at 5 and right around 60 degrees at 7. 64 degrees is the high today. Yesterday we got to 62, so we'll feel very similar. We're still just barely below that 68-degree average, but overall a nice day ahead for us. Low temperatures tonight, close to normal at about 43 degrees. It'll be clear this evening. Mostly clear tomorrow as well. At least early in the day. We'll end up with more clouds in the afternoon on Thursday and a few showers late Thursday night as our next weather system moves in. Friday, though, a 70% chance of rain in the forecast. A cold front moves through, and that's what's going to bring that high chance for rain. There's currently a 3 out of 5 for a severe weather threat. You'll notice it includes a large portion of the United States. And part of our area also under that 3 out of 5. Now, I don't necessarily think that we'll have too high of a severe weather threat in our area. Has a lot to do with the early morning rain that we'll have in the Mid-South. Instability is just not impressive with this system to me. Damaging winds would be the main concern if we did get a severe thunderstorm. Hail and tornado threat, very, very low with this one, but damaging winds can obviously still cause some issues. So let's talk timing. 7 o'clock in the morning Friday. Again, there will be some rain. There'll be showers as we go through the morning, clouds in place. Now we may dry out for a little bit, not for long. I don't think it'll be long enough to recover from that early morning rain. Right around noon, a break in those showers, temperatures in the lower to mid 70s, but already by 3 or 4 o'clock, the rain spreads in. 5 o'clock, we have widespread rain here across the entire Mid-South, but thunderstorms will be possible between 5 and midnight. There could still be some lingering storms in northeast Mississippi through midnight, but Memphis will already be clearing out, and any remaining rain will be out of here by the time you wake up Saturday morning. This is 7 a.m. No rain, and even clouds start to move out by that point. Rainfall totals will be close to an inch, could be closer to that half-inch mark in Tunica and Helena, but overall about an inch of rain will fall on Friday. And then after that, I told you the weekend is dry. 70 degrees on Saturday, 73 on Sunday, so it should be a beautiful weekend. Now, if anything changes, if any severe thunderstorm watches or even tornado watches get issued, you'll want to have our First Alert weather app. Any watches or warnings that get issued get sent straight to your phone. Plus, we post video updates on there, and we update you nonstop during the day. 64 degrees is our high today, 72 tomorrow, warming up all the way to 74 on Friday. And then I showed you those 70s over the weekend. Next week, we'll have a chance for some thunderstorms on Tuesday. May see a few showers on Monday as the weather system moves through the Mid-South next week.
I'm doing something that I love to do.
So am I, pure and simple.
You don't do this for 26 years if you don't like it.
This month's Mid-South heroes are a pair of crossing guards with the Germantown Police Department who put on the uniform and a smile each and every day. Peggy Grammer has been a crossing guard for more than a decade, while her co-worker Faye Lester has been at it for over 25 years. These two are at their posts every morning and afternoon, dealing with traffic, parents, and weather.
The worst part for me is lightning. I don't mind the rain. I don't mind the cold. I don't like the hot, but I do not like lightning. Do not.
And I'm basically the same. The lightning really is the hardest part of standing out here.
I can deal with the cars. Just keep the lightning away.
I've actually been hit, not hard, by a car, but really, it's just all in a day's work.
Faye and Peggy can be seen weekdays at area schools like Houston Middle, directing parent traffic, bus traffic, and their favorite part of the job, helping students cross busy streets.
That's the draw. You just love the kids.
Faye's the best. You don't do this job for the money or anything. You do this job for your love of the kids. And there's nothing like these babies. I mean, they're like our grandkids. They're ours. And I even have kids come back with their kids. So yeah, it's an awesome job, and that makes me feel happy that I make someone else happy.
You see them every day. You know if they're having a bad day or whatever, you're going to know it because you're one of the first people that see them.
These two heroes have a simple but important request.
These kids' lives are important, and trying to get people to stop and let us get these kids safely across the street, some days it's all we can do. And if people would just take a moment to realize that these kids' lives are in really big danger, it would be nice. Just slow down just a little bit. You might get to where you're going 2 or 3 minutes later, but you're going to get there, and our kids are going to be safe.
It's scary sometimes how close they come. Just have patience with us because we're doing the best we can, and sometimes it is in a difficult situation. And kindness always wins out.
Congratulations, Faye and Peggy. You are this month's Mid-South heroes.
Andrew Douglas here in the Action News 5 digital desk. Every time that there is a tragic event that is all across the news, there are a lot of questions with regards to how to talk with your children so that they can understand but not see too much violence and heartbreak in our community and, of course, on the news. Nashville happened on Monday. It's now Wednesday, and it's still very vivid and seared in the minds of so many people across the Mid-South. I want to bring in right now psychologist Colby Butson. She is with Le Bonheur Children's Hospital to give us more insight on how to talk to children about tragedies like what we saw in Nashville unfold. Dr. Butson, how are you this morning?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Doing well. So where do we begin with all this?
Well, I think it's important to ask our kids kind of what they know already. It's important to as when we're talking with them, to kind of get a feeling for where their questions are, what their experience is so far of what has happened. Sometimes kids will bring it up themselves spontaneously, and that's a good way to kind of start the conversation. They might have questions, or they might talk about things that have come up at school or things they've seen, and that's a good opening of the door for parents to kind of assess what questions their kids have and what they need.
Where do we go from there? I guess a lot of it depends on the age of the child, but there's got to be some filtering here, right?
Definitely. So we want to keep in mind where our children's developmental level is and give them truthful, open information, but we need to be careful about the amount of information and the graphic nature of it. So being mindful of what images are being shown in our home, like on our TVs or on our devices, being aware of the information that the kids are getting on their own devices, possibly. So for some kids, for very young kids, just minimal information can be helpful and can help put them at ease, letting them know that something bad happened and some people were hurt, and then seeing where that conversation goes. If the child is worried about their own safety, reassuring them to let them know that the parents and teachers and other adults in that child's life are there to protect them and keep them safe and to do everything they can to make sure that they're safe. For older kids, elementary age, providing a little bit more information might be necessary, but again, being careful to, monitor, think about the amount that you want to give them. You don't want to give them graphic descriptions or go into a whole lot of detail. And I use this opportunity more for listening and than necessarily taking the lead in that conversation. When you're listening, you can correct any misinformation that they might have heard. You can validate their feelings and take care to make sure that any worries or stresses that they have are being addressed. And then for older kids, middle school, high school, again, answering their questions directly, but in those instances, possibly monitoring a little bit more what they might be seeing on their devices, on the news, on the internet, and using that as an opportunity to talk about, knowing where to find good, correct information and being careful about maybe coming upon information that's incorrect or unhelpful.
I think one of the last things that most parents want is to stress out their kids or maybe find ways to limit any kind of stress. What are some good signs of stress to kind of, understand and know how your child's feeling?
If you see any changes in their day-to-day behavior, so changes in their normal sleep patterns, having trouble going to sleep or waking up with nightmares, if you see changes in some of their physical symptoms, like maybe they're having headaches or stomach aches more, and this happens to coincide with a discussion that you had about a traumatic event recently. Also having any changes in their mood, being more sad or withdrawn, or being more angry and acting out more. Those could be things to pay attention to. Also changes in the things that they are interested in. So if they suddenly don't want to go to school or don't want to participate in activities they've done before, that could be a sign that, you know, maybe I need to pay a little bit more attention to this. And having kind of an acute or immediate response with a change in behavior to an event like this is pretty normal. So if there's a brief response where there's a change in their sleep or a change in their behavior, kind of doing some of the things I mentioned with reassuring them, letting them know that they're safe and they're cared for, is usually a pretty sound way to help them deal with those feelings. If those changes in behavior persist, they last longer than a couple of weeks, that might be time to reach out to your child's healthcare provider or a mental health provider like a counselor or psychologist to talk about how else you might address their feelings and symptoms.
Dr. Boutson, you're a psychologist at Le Bonheur Children's Hospital. When you see these types of events in the news, these current events that happen, do you deal with kids that are traumatized by it all?
I do. I see kids who have been traumatized by, you know, maybe seeing something in the media that reminds them of things that have happened in their own lives, or even just seeing something that makes them start to think, what if that happened to me? Even if they don't have a trauma history, that can also be difficult for them to cope with. And I work with a lot of families who love and support their kids and want the best for them. And so even sometimes before a big response happens, parents might bring in their kids or family might bring in their kids to just be sure that they're doing the right things. And I always encourage parents that they know their kids best and they can tell when behaviors have changed or when their child just isn't the way that isn't behaving the way they normally do. And we're always here to provide that care and support for our families as well.
We have thousands of people watching our digital desk right now. Perhaps the majority of them are parents or grandparents. Anything else you want to mention before we let you go, Doctor?
I just also want to pay attention to those folks as well, the parents, grandparents, caregivers, and emphasize the importance of taking care of your own mental health too. So if you notice that you're having an especially hard time parenting in the aftermath of a traumatic event or watching these tragic things on TV or hearing about them, that's also normal. Being a parent or caregiver to children is challenging in the best of times. And so having to cope with these difficulties can make it extra hard. So I just want to encourage parents to take care of themselves, their own well-being, as well as their children, and know that there are people in this community, as well as across the country, who are available to help support kids and families in any struggles they're going through.
Okay, Dr. Colby Boutson, psychologist with Le Bonheur Children's Hospital. We appreciate your insight this morning with regards to how to talk with children and help them cope with tragedies that, like we experienced in Nashville, seen all over the news, certainly hits closer to home here in the Mid-South. Thanks again for your knowledge and your insight this morning. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Good morning, everyone. The next time you get a checkup or a physical, don't be surprised if your doctor prescribes a walk. Yes, a walk, because studies have shown recently that walking just 30 to 60 minutes a day can drastically improve your health, can also reduce the risk of diseases like diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. Let's bring in Dr. Antonio Gutierrez. He's an American Heart Association volunteer expert to talk more about how a walk can have so many improvements when it comes to our health. Good morning, doctor. Let's talk about some of the health benefits of just walking every day.
Thank you so much for having me. This will be a good time to mention that National Walking Day is on April 5th, but you're absolutely right. There are a lot of great benefits for your health when it comes to walking. There have been several studies that show that it can decrease your blood pressure and cholesterol. And if you exercise regularly, you will see an increase in your mood, energy, improvement in your quality of sleep, and a decrease overall in your levels of stress.
You know, so many people have watches or rings that kind of measure how many steps they get each day, 10,000 steps everyone's trying to get these days. Is there a certain amount of steps you should get before you see the benefits, or is it something that you just need to get out 30 to 60 minutes a day?
So the first thing is we recommend that you start off slow. Do whatever you can, whether that's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, something is better than nothing. Now, if possible, if you can work up to 30 to 60 minutes a day, that would be fantastic. You know, the 6,000 steps is what has been shown to start showing benefits for your health overall.
I got you, doctor. What about peripheral artery disease? Tell me what that is and how can we recognize those symptoms?
So peripheral artery disease, also known as PAD, is a disease where you get blockages in the arteries of the legs. Just like you get blockages in the arteries of the heart, you can get them in the legs. And this often comes on in people 50 years or older. Some of the first signs of you having PAD is you'll start to experiencing cramping and pain in your calves and thighs when you walk, especially if you go up on an incline.
You know, that's interesting. I never really heard about that. I'm also interested in the study that said that just 15 minutes of walking a day can crave some sugar cravings out there. Tell me more about that.
That's or the benefits of walking. There's a lot of them. You're absolutely right. If you walk at least 15 minutes a day, that's been shown to decrease your overall sugar cravings. Can also increase your creativity by 60%. So if you're in a little rut, you know, at work or need a little bit more energy, go outside and take a short walk.
You know, going back to peripheral artery disease, I guess the suggestion is even if it hurts you and even if there's some discomfort, you should still continue walking. Is that right? Tell me why.
You're absolutely correct. When it comes to PAD and walking, if you don't use it, you will lose it. So the less you walk, the less you'll be able to walk in the future. However, if you have PAD, what we will recommend is that you walk until you start feeling the symptoms of discomfort. Go ahead and take a few seconds, 20 to 30 seconds of rest, and then get right back at it and walk until you feel these symptoms. Now, at first, you're going to be a little tired, but what you'll find is over time, over weeks, that you will be able to walk without experiencing these symptoms, and you'll also be able to walk further.
I know that I've seen some studies where blood sugar levels are drastically reduced after dinner if you walk, you know, after dinner for 30 minutes or, you know, just around the neighborhood, that sort of thing. April 5th is National Walking Day. You mentioned that earlier. Is that the day that there's going to be more awareness to just kind of bringing the need that everyone just needs to walk every day?
You know, we just use it as a good day, a good time to get everybody aware of, to get out and just move around, especially if you have, you know, diseases like PAD or any risk factors for PAD, such as diabetes or heart disease. It's a good time to get out.
Anything else we can mention with regards to National Walk Day, taking steps in the right direction to improve your health, peripheral artery disease, anything else you want to mention, and where can we go to get some more information?
So the American Heart Association really is the premier source for all questions with cardiovascular disease. If you guys have any questions, I recommend you go to heart.org/PAD. The other thing you can do is ask your physician next time you're in for a routine checkup.
All right, Dr. Antonio Gutierrez, we really appreciate your time explaining exactly what people need to do. Very easy, simple ways that people can improve their health. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, how about this? Have you heard? Memphis employment law attorney Alan Crone just released his book. It's called The Law at Work. And we have a treat for you today because he's joining us here at the Action News 5 digital desk. If I can get him up here real quick. Alan, there you are. I'm glad to have you on to talk more about this. How you doing this morning?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm glad to be talking with you. This is super exciting for you, I know, coming out with this book. And so could you kind of tell us a little bit of insight, you know, what led you to write this book for starters, and then what it's about?
Well, I wrote the book because I wanted people to be able to understand complex employment laws in a easy to understand format. So I went through a lot of the basic concepts, and it's a way that folks can read it and get an idea about what their next step should be.
Good stuff. And so let's talk a little bit more about some of the common workplace conflicts that people deal with.
Well, you know, there are all kinds of conflicts that arise at work. Some are illegal, some are just frustrating and difficult to deal with. And that's one of the things that I talk about in the book is how to recognize the difference. When you should go see a lawyer, or maybe when you should go to your HR department, or sometimes even go to a therapist to kind of understand the psychological dimension that's going on. You know, employment at will is the doctrine that says you can be fired at any time for any reason. And so there are exceptions to that, but they're pretty narrow exceptions. And, you know, your employment relationship is one of the most important relationships that you have. And you need to know how to deal with conflicts as they come up in the workplace.
You know, we have thousands of people that watch us here on a digital live stream. If they're saying, hey, I'm dealing with one of those issues that you're talking about, what is the first step that they should take?
Well, the first thing they should do if they're having an issue at work is to try to resolve it internally if they can. Now, it's very important to figure out exactly what's going on. Are they having a problem because it's a personality conflict? Is it maybe a difference of how the work should be done? Or is there something more insidious going on? In other words, is someone discriminating against them or harassing them because of a category that they're in? In other words, are they discriminating against them or harassing them because of their sex or their race or religion or that sort of thing? If you really think that's going on, that's very, very serious. And so you may want to talk to an employment lawyer, or you want to go to your HR and you want to be very, very specific about what you think is going on. In other words, if you think someone is discriminating against you or harassing you because you're a woman or because you're Black or because you're not from this country, you need to tell HR that very, very specifically. A lot of people I have found kind of dance around that. You know, they don't want to be that person. They don't want to play that card. But if that's what's really going on, you owe it to the company to alert them that it's going on, and you owe it to yourself, because if you don't make that clear at the very beginning, then the company won't know how to treat it seriously, and they may just treat it as a personality conflict. And in that situation, neither you nor the other person have any rights. So I think that's the first thing, is naming what you've got going on, and don't be timid about it. The only way the company can correct it is if you go to them and tell them what's going on.
You know, and I think one big thing too is having documentation. So going and reporting those sort of things, it's important to be able to have that as well. You know, you're hearing a lot about layoffs. There's so much uncertainty right now. You know, we recently had that deal with American Car Center here, where like nearly 300 employees just were without a job. What types of questions should employees be asking during a layoff meeting? Should they be signing some sort of severance agreement if one is presented? Can you talk more about that?
Sure, that's a great question. And there are three important things to understand about that and to do if you're brought into a meeting and it's clear that you're going to be laid off or fired. The first thing is talk less and listen more. Listen to what they have to say. If you can write down notes of the conversation, that's good. Don't argue with them. You're not going to change their mind, and it only will just exacerbate the situation. Listen to what they say. Ask them, why am I being fired? What's the reason you're firing me? When they give you the reason, even if it's outrageous or unreasonable, don't argue with them. Just write it down. The second thing that you want to do is don't sign anything. Say, I'd like to take this document with me and have my lawyer look at it. You don't have to make a big deal about it, but if they say, no, you got to sign it right then let it go. And then go see a lawyer. Your lawyer can get a copy of that agreement, and it's not going to go off the table just because you walk out of the room. If that's the case, then it probably wasn't a good deal for you to begin with. If you're over 40, they have to let you take it, give you 21 days to consider it, and then a 7-day revocation period. So don't say as little as possible. Don't sign anything. And then the third thing is when you leave, go see a lawyer about it. A very important part of it is try not to take it personally. I know that is extremely hard. When you're in that meeting, particularly if you really don't see it coming, it hits you like a ton of bricks. But it's deeply personal to the person being fired, obviously. Those feelings, that emotion is not going to resolve itself in that meeting. And just try to get through it without saying or doing anything that you might regret later.
So say someone's been terminated. How do you know if it qualifies for wrongful termination?
Well, you really don't. That's kind of the problem. But if you suspect that you're being fired because you're in a protected category, in other words, you're Black, you're female, you're not an American citizen, you're not your national origin, your religion, your age, those sorts of things, then you want to start thinking about, all right, what are all the reasons why I think that? What are what's the conduct? What are the statements? What's going on that makes me think this is the reason that the real reason I'm being fired, and write those down. It also could be because you engaged in certain protected activity. Maybe you made a complaint about discrimination or harassment. Maybe you made an OSHA complaint about safety conditions or financial improprieties or any number of things. If you're retaliated against for engaging in that conduct, then you might also have a wrongful termination claim. If you know in your heart of hearts that, well, the reason I'm being fired is, Betty doesn't like me and it's just because we've had a personality conflict, or I'm getting fired because I've got a new boss and he wants to bring in someone he's worked with before, or it's a matter of office politics, that can be a tough climb. But what you really need to do is go and talk to someone like me or another employment lawyer and tell them the whole story. And that lawyer can then help you determine whether or not you've got a wrongful termination or it's just an unfortunate termination.
So how does one know if an issue they're experiencing in the workplace rises to the level of officially being discrimination or harassment? Is there a line, or what can you say about that?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
When you talk about someone dealing with an issue in the workplace, how do you know it rises to the level of making it an official type of harassment or discrimination? How do you know? Is there kind of a line that's drawn to be able to figure that out?
Well, I think the first line is if the conduct or treatment is making it difficult for you to do your job, it's impairing your ability to work, or you've been demoted or you've been transferred and you feel like it's wrong, then you need to go and go to HR or go to your boss and make a record of it. It's very difficult to do because people are concerned about retaliation. They say, well, if I complain, I'm going to lose my job. And I always say, yeah, you have a claim for wrongful termination, perhaps at that point. But most people would rather have a bad job than a great lawsuit, because the former puts food on the table today. And so a lot of people are very intimidated by it. And so if you're in an environment, if you're in a workplace where you don't feel comfortable expressing your opinion, particularly if you think it's sexual harassment or racial harassment, or you're being put in a bad place because of what you are, not who you are, then you need to start looking for another job, because that environment is not going to get better. And the best thing you can do is separate yourself from that. I call it employment inertia. People will put up with terrible conditions like that because they fear change. And oftentimes the best thing that at the end of the day, sometimes the best thing an employer like that can do to you is fire you and free you up to go pursue some happiness somewhere else. So, I think it's your question is, how do you know? The problem is you don't know. And I think if you've got a good relationship with a supervisor or a coworker or an HR person, go talk to them. But when you talk to the company officially, either confirm it in an email or do it in an email so that you've got a written record of it. And that's probably one of the biggest impediments to having a good case. People will come to me and they've made complaints, but they can prove it by saying they did it, but then it becomes their word against their supervisors. So if it's that bad, you need to put it in writing. And again, you need to label it. You need to say, Frank is discriminating against me because I'm a woman, and here are the reasons I believe that, and set it all out in the email. That's probably the biggest thing that you can do.
For sure. Well, this is a lot of good information, and I love that your book, The Law at Work, really kind of explains it in a way that's easy for people to understand. I know you have a book signing coming up this weekend. Tell us about it.
That's right. We're going to be at Novel on Saturday at 2 o'clock, and we're going to read, I'll read some passages from the book and be able to sign the book and talk to folks about employment. Come on out, because it sounds, anytime you talk about law, people's eyes kind of glaze over a little bit. But this is real life.
Let's talk a little bit about meditation and mindfulness. Those are two things that, from what we understand, can really help us during very stressful moments, during this stressful time, I guess you can say, unprecedented times that we are living through right now. And joining me now to talk about meditation and mindfulness is Dr. Gail Gazelle. She's an assistant professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School. Dr. Gazelle, thanks again for joining us. We appreciate every time you join us. How are you?
Wonderful. It's a pleasure to be here today.
So let's talk about meditation and mindfulness, because there are so many benefits that maybe people don't realize, especially in this age where we're just trying to lower the temperature, lower that stress that we feel each and every day.
Without a doubt. And when we think about healthcare, really, it's chock full of stress. The stakes are so very high. Certainly before the pandemic, many sick patients, not enough resources necessarily to take care of them, a lot of time pressure, emergencies upon emergencies. And of course, with the pandemic, the temperature, as you say, has really been turned up. And we don't learn a lot in our training as physicians or nurses or technicians or therapists in how to calm ourselves and how to really manage all of the stress that we experience. And for me, that's where I see mindfulness and meditation really having a critically important role.
Right, because physicians and other medical professionals, they know how to take care of others, but a lot of times it's at the expense of their own health. And we can learn a lot from not only how to protect themselves and their mental issues and their mental state, but also that kind of protection can also just talk to all of us, speak to all of us when it comes to just really kind of building that calmness inside, right?
It's so very true. I think when the public hears the word mindfulness, our minds can go to robed and bald-headed monks on a mountainside, can't they? And yet what I think about for mindfulness, particularly in healthcare for both doctors and patients, is really the mastery over our own minds. I mean, let's face it, our minds are very busy places, 10 to 20,000 thoughts a day. And some of those thoughts are great. They're really full of purpose and they help guide us. But when we focus on our own thoughts, whoever we are, we begin to realize that our minds are complicated places. A lot of the thoughts and stories that our minds spin are really actually fake news, and they can drag us down. They can take us to a very negative place, increasing our anxiety, increasing our stress levels. So without a doubt, we can all benefit from learning tools to manage our own busy minds.
So our minds have 10,000 to 20,000 thoughts a day. That's really an extraordinary number and a fact there. How do we bring down that complication and make it really simple for us to make our minds work for us in terms of bringing down the stress level?
Well, what's really important is getting to know our own busy mind, and that's where meditation is so important. When we meditate, we're not banishing thought, but we're sitting quietly and we're just getting to know what it is that's going on in our mind. And what I find is that when I teach meditation to busy doctors and others, they're shocked. They had no idea that their mind was such a busy place. And when we think about that in medical terms, well, we can't treat something, we can't intervene until we diagnose it. So what I mean by that is we have to diagnose our own mind in a friendly way, not in a judgmental way. We don't sit there meditating thinking, what's wrong with me for having all these thoughts? We just notice, look at how busy my mind is, and let me get to know, let me befriend my own mind and get to know what's here. Why? So that I can work with my own mind and not be so much the servant of it, but become actually the one who's the master over it. And that, I think, is really the beauty of what mindfulness can offer all of us.
So we want to get the stress point to be reduced. We also want more calmness in our lives. What about the positivity aspect? How do we become more grateful in our lives?
Well, again, my focus is doctors and healthcare, and the public may not realize just how critical doctors learn to be of ourselves. As you mentioned, we're there to take care of others, so we don't learn to take care of ourselves. Sometimes we're not even on our own to-do list. But as we get to know that pattern of self-criticism, which again is not just the purview for doctors and healthcare, but we can all suffer from that, we begin to realize that perhaps it isn't helping us to be so critical of ourselves, to be so negative, to go down the negativity bias that affects all of us. And that's where I think we can get to know our own patterns. We can recognize when our thoughts are taking us into a negative, unhelpful direction, and we can course correct. Again, that's one of the skills that we get with mindfulness. For myself, I've gotten to the point where I can notice, oh, there goes my silly mind, kind of criticizing me again, looking at all the negatives around me. Do I really have to follow that train, or would it be more helpful for me in terms of what's going on right now to shift my thoughts more in a positive direction? So it's not about, oh, just put on a smiley face and everything will be great. It's about getting to know your own mind and really working with it in the most constructive way that you can.
You know, doctors and all kinds of medical professionals, you know, they really get worn down by all the sickness they see, and especially during the pandemic, it has been tough for that profession. There's no question about it. How do they and other medical professionals build resilience with mindfulness?
Such an important question because, you know, the toll on healthcare workers has always been high. Again, it's a very high stakes profession, and we go into it knowing that and embracing that and wanting to do what we can to help those around us. But what do we do when there's a situation like the pandemic where the stresses are really just, you know, something that's unprecedented for all of those in healthcare? And so we can build resilience, very importantly, by building moments of calm into our day. Even the busiest day, it can be like running a marathon if we don't learn how to pause and actually kind of cool ourselves down and have moments of calm. With mindfulness, we can take those kind of pauses, those mindful pauses. We can notice when we're just running mentally and physically, and remind ourselves that if we're going to get through this marathon of healthcare, that we actually need to kind of take these mental timeouts. One very practical step that I recommend to healthcare providers is that in between patients, we simply pause and take at least one slow, deep breath, maybe even 3. It sounds so incredibly simple, but it can actually help us regulate ourselves and help us give us what we need to run this marathon that we are in healthcare.
So if someone's listening to this interview and they're trying to figure out, okay, I like the idea of meditation, I like the idea of mindfulness and building up that calm and a positive idea of how to approach daily routines, where would you tell them to start?
Well, there are a lot of wonderful apps out there now. Calm, 10% Happier, Headspace, there are a ton of them. I have a free 14-day mindfulness meditation course where in less than 10 minutes a day, I guide individuals in a brief mindfulness topic and then in a meditation. And people can access that on my website, gailgazelle.com. It's a free offering, and that's often a good place for people to get started.
Is there any mindset, we're talking about mindfulness, but is there any mindset when you approach this type of 14-day course or this type of attitude, hey, I need to lower my stress every day, I need to feel better about what I do each and every day. What else can we tell people to really kind of help them through this all?
Well, I think we can tell people that it's normal to experience stress. It's normal. It's part of the human condition, and it's normal to have a busy mind. There's nothing wrong with you, any of your listeners, if you're sitting there thinking, what's wrong with me that my mind is so busy and that I don't know how to quiet it? So I think that's really important, that we don't judge ourselves for being in the human condition and not learning these skills. Again, I often feel that if medical training covered some of these skills, that for me as an executive coach for burnt out physicians and physician leaders, I'd be happily out of a job, because these are skills that all of us can learn. So I think if your viewers take nothing else away, it's a sense of hopefulness that we all can become more the master of our own mind rather than, frankly, the servant.
Completely agree with you, Dr. Gazelle. One of the benefits, I guess, one of the good things that we can say that's come out of this pandemic is this emphasis, this focus on mental health, and having this idea, having this routine that you say, this 14-day course to really kind of focus in and hone in on ways to bring down the stress level, make sure there's more calmness in your life, make sure there's more positivity, is something that we all need for sure. Anything else you'd like to say before we let you go?
Well, again, just to emphasize that this is more than possible. We don't have to go off to a mountaintop for hours a day. We can build these moments of self-awareness and self-reflection into our days really by paying attention and by pausing and by working with our own busy mind. This is more than possible for all of us in healthcare and all of us as a nation.
Dr. Gail Gazelle, thank you. Always appreciate our conversations, and we look forward to future conversations with you. Thanks so very much.
Thank you.
I want to tell you about a report that a majority of Americans say that they are not belonging when it comes to coworkers, when it comes to their community, that sort of thing. It is something that is raising a lot of eyebrows across the country and here in the Mid-South. I want to talk more about this report with Kimberly Serrano. She is director for the Center of Inclusion and Belonging. Kimberly, good morning. Let's talk about the Belonging Barometer and what it is and what it means with regards to this report.
Good morning. The Belonging Barometer is a new piece of research that is working to synthesize a lot of the current knowledge about belonging, what it means, what it looks like, and trying to figure out how to measure it. And then taking that measure and applying it to a large survey across the U.S. to take a pulse on the state of belonging in this country.
So tell me why it is so important when it comes to belonging in, for example, a workplace environment.
So belonging is incredibly important because it's actually a basic human need. It's something that our brains as human beings are wired for. And it's also something that when we see folks report high belonging, it also correlates with all sorts of other positive life outcomes like better health, less stress, less loneliness, greater social connection. And the workplace is a really important place in which to be fostering and building belonging. because it is, we see high belonging in workplaces, we see folks being able to stay in their jobs longer, greater job retention, greater innovation, and ultimately a higher willingness to recommend their jobs to others.
So Kimberly, let me ask you this, because I know that there's this research talking about the state of belonging in the American workplace. How much, and maybe the research doesn't suggest this, but how much has the pandemic created any kind of influence, both positive or negative, with regards to this?
So, certainly our research doesn't give us insight into the exact impacts of the pandemic on workplace belonging, but there's a lot of research showing us that the pandemic certainly changed how people are working, and increasingly being able to build belonging in a workplace can be super critical for innovation and job retention, and being able to make sure that employees feel like they have a space where they can feel psychologically safe, so they can feel like they can contribute and support the outcomes of the workplace. And certainly with the pandemic, workplaces are changing substantially, and there's a lot of really good innovations that employers are figuring out across the country in terms of how to build that belonging.
I gotcha. And so let's talk now about ways employers and businesses, what they can do to build this workplace belonging that's so key and so important. I know that if workers out there are like me, you spend a majority of the time at work with your work family, sometimes more than your real family.
Absolutely. And, and in addition to spending a lot of time in the workplace, it's also, it's an important place where people are actually coming together across lines of difference. It's actually one of the greatest sites of diversity that we see. And so, we're seeing employers doing important things like creating employee resource groups. So creating space within an organization, whether that's a large organization like FedEx or a small organization like the local mom and pop restaurant on the corner, being able to create some opportunity for employees to share and express their perspectives and listen to those perspectives. And then, of course, also being able to take good measures of the state of belonging in a workplace. So that way, an employer can know, are we improving, and are we actually changing the material conditions in our workplace?
Kimberly, where can we get some more information about this and perhaps of this new research that you mentioned? Is there a place online we could go?
So you can go to the Belonging Barometer. You can find it on the American Immigration Council's website, as well as the website for OverZero. Those were two organizations that were involved in conducting the research, and you can download a full copy of the report.
Okay, Kimberly Serrano, Director, Center for Inclusion and Belonging. We appreciate your conversation with us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I want to tell you about this, a colon cancer awareness event. That is happening. Let's show it one more time here. It is happening Thursday, March 30th. That's tomorrow at 6 o'clock in the evening. Bartlett United Methodist Church, 5676 Stage Road. It is free and it is open to the public. I'm joined now by Dr. Paul Johnson, colorectal surgeon, surgical oncologist with Methodist Cancer Institute. Dr. Johnson, how are you? Good morning.
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. So tell me more about this event that's happening tomorrow at 6.
Yes. So as we know, it's colorectal cancer awareness month, and we want to make an emphasis on educating the public about colon and rectal screening, because that's the most important way to prevent cancer, to treat cancer, and to beat colon cancer. So the event is going to specifically target patients who are uninsured. It's open to everybody, but we're gonna we want all those patients who are uninsured or underinsured to come on out, learn more about colon screening, and we're going to give away coupons for free test kits that they'll be able to check their risk of colon and rectal cancer.
And Dr. Johnson, my understanding is that colorectal cancer is one of those cancers that if you catch it early, you're in much better shape compared to by the time symptoms appear. Is that right? Can you explain that?
That is absolutely correct. Colon cancer, if we catch it in its very earliest stages, the 5-year survival is as high as over 90%. But if we catch it when it's spread to organs far away, the 5-year survival drops down to 14%. So because we can use colonoscopy as a way to decrease, either catch the cancer early or remove those abnormal growths called polyps and decrease that cancer risk, it's important that we emphasize the importance of coming out for screening. And I do want to emphasize quickly that the screening age for those who cannot make it is 45. It's no longer 50.
Right, 45 and up, and I understand that you're trying to get people who are uninsured. And tell me what else. I understand you're going to have a translator there too, right?
We will have translator services. We will have nutrition services because we know that there's a link between diet and colon cancer. We'll also have resources for smoking cessation because smoking is pretty much the worst thing that we can do for any cancer, rather. It's the worst thing for the body. So we'll have resources that will emphasize smoking cessation, and we're going to have a panel presentation. So we're going to have primary care, gastroenterology, myself as a colon and rectal surgery, and also a hematology oncologist who, any questions along the gamut of colon and rectal care, you'll have a specialist who's able to answer those questions.
Okay, and have you done this kind of thing before in the past? And if so, how many people show up? I mean, is it going to be a big line? Give us an idea.
I'm actually new to the Memphis area. This is my, I just came in this, I'm coming up on my year anniversary. So it's my first time participating. Of course, Methodist is a strong advocate for community outreach. So there's been events like this in the past, but this is my first one. I hear that they're pretty well attended, but this one's a live event, and we were previously doing a lot of web events. So I'm excited to see what the turnout will be. I hope there will be a line because I want as many people to be educated as possible.
Okay, once again, we want to show everybody the flyer here. This is an awareness event. And to register, you want to visit methodisthealth.org/colon. I think we touched on everything, Dr. Johnson. Is there anything else you wanted to mention before we let you go?
Speak to your primary care physician if you have them. If you have any questions about your personal health risk, remember colon cancer, preventable, beatable, and treatable.
Okay, Dr. Paul Johnson, colorectal surgeon, surgical oncologist with the Methodist Cancer Institute. We appreciate your time. Good luck at the event tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at Bartlett United Methodist Church. Appreciate your time. Good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas in the Action News 5 digital desk. Electric vehicles. Let's talk about them for a minute. They're gaining in popularity, but even though you're going to see more electric vehicles out on the roadways, many consumers still have a lot of questions on whether or not electric vehicles are right for them. Let's bring in James Bell. He's head of corporate communications for Kia America. Good morning, James. How's it going?
Good morning, Dew. I'm playing with cars. It's a good day.
Yeah, tell me first off, where are you and what you're sitting in front of there? Looks like an EV.
Yes, you're right. I'm in Southern California. We're getting ready for the big blizzard. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, this is what's called our EV6 GT. This one's a really special one. Has about 576 horsepower, does 0 to 60 in a little over 3 seconds. Takes on and beats a lot of Ferraris and Lamborghinis. So we're pretty excited about this car, and people seem to be loving it too. It's been on sale for about a year now, and we can't make them fast enough.
So tell me more about the idea of electric cars, because there's so many people that are very apprehensive to go to EV vehicles, or EVs, I should say, because they're just used to gas-powered. There's more flexibility. There's a lot more autonomy, according to some people that have gas-powered vehicles. What would be your best argument for EVs?
You know what? It's not even an argument. It's just recognition of this phase that we're in. I like to equate it back to what it must have been like when people went from horse-drawn carriages to gasoline-powered cars. You know, there was a lot of folks that said, well, this gasoline thing will never work. There's not a gas station on every corner. This is, you know, I just feed my horse hay and away it goes. We're in that same kind of premise right now with this transition time. I think, however, we're going to see the transition happen a lot quicker. So if somebody, you know, has an incredibly long commute or needs to drive to grandma's house on a regular basis, then maybe a gasoline-powered car is the best choice today. But in a very short amount of time, the electric vehicles are going to be a better option. And by the way, for most Americans, which drive on the average about 28 to 30 miles a day, imagine if you never had to go to the gas station again. Imagine every time you left your home, you had so we call it a full tank of gas or a full state of charge. It's a very luxurious experience. And I think once people try it, they recognize that this is probably a better option for their families. But again, this is transitional. We're not just going to suddenly get rid of all gasoline stations and gasoline powered vehicles. We're in a transition time. And over time, it will eventually evolve towards electric.
You know, there's a lot of questions, James, about the power grid. I don't know if you could speak to that, but, you know, a lot of people concerned about the power grid being able to handle the demand of electric vehicles. If there is this demand and it increases over time, you know, there's a lot of people that say the power grid just can't handle it.
Well, I think they're being a little short-sighted there. You know, the industry, the government, you know, the entire infrastructure system recognizes that this is the future. It's going to happen, folks. It's going to get that way, but it's not going to just happen tomorrow. There's going to be investment. There's going to be upgrading in facilities. It was newsworthy back in the summertime here in Southern California. We had a series of very warm days, and there was a short period of time when the government, state government said, please back off use of too much electric power. And then that suddenly became, oh, now I can't charge my car. It's an isolated incident, very, very rare. And I think it is not recognizing the fact that there is this huge multi-billion-dollar investment going on in the infrastructure to prepare for this day when we all drive electric. Because again, this day is coming. It's not tomorrow. It's not in 5 years, but it's coming.
A lot of people concerned about, one, how long it takes to charge a vehicle, and two, the distance that people will travel with one charge. There have been a number of different independent journalists that have taken, for example, other vehicles, trucks and that sort of thing, to various charging stations. It takes forever, or there's an extraordinary long wait in line for a charger to become available, and then once you get there, it takes forever for that battery to be charged. Tell me about the vehicle that you're sitting in front of.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So we're really proud at Kia. All of our electric vehicles have what's called 800-volt charging systems available. So built in is the ability to basically take on a level 3 charger, of which the number of those is incredibly increasing all across the country. It can go from a 10% state of charge to over 80% in about 18 minutes. Now, stop and think for a moment. When you go to the gas station, you know, plug in the nozzle, walk into the station, get a Gatorade, go to the restroom, get a snack, come back, maybe throw away some garbage, clean the windows. It's probably a 10 to 12 to 15 minute project anyway. So I think once we see this level 3 charging, again, which the Kia vehicle is already prepared for, that will really wash away some of that. But again, I know the kind of journalist trips that you're talking about. It does take a little more time and coordination to use a vehicle on, say, in a long distance or a cross-country trip today. And that's why gasoline-powered cars are still here, and they will continue to be here for some time in the future. But we're in this phase. We're going towards that place. And I think, you know, have me back on your show in 3 or 4 years, and I think that concern about having charging stations available and ability to high-speed charge, or what's called level 3, will be in a much more advanced place than it is today. And that's the nature of transitional times.
How long does a charge last? How many miles? And how much does that car retail for?
Well, we have several different versions of this vehicle. This one gets about 250 miles on a charge, but again, this is faster than many Porsches and Ferraris. So this is a special one. But we have another version called the Wind and the EV6 GT line, which average about 280 to 320 miles on a charge. And that's more than enough. As I mentioned earlier, average American drives about 28 miles per day. So as you can see, you wouldn't even need to charge every day to use a vehicle that has in excess of 300 miles of range on a full charge.
All right, James. Well, listen, we appreciate your time. Thanks for
Sure.
talking with us about electric vehicles and the landscape and how it looks to be changing over the course of the next several years. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, that does it for us here in the Action News 5 Digital Desk. Have yourself a wonderful afternoon. We have Action News 5 Midday coming up at the top of the hour, including the forecast that you're going to see with meteorologist Spencer Denton, and then we'll be back later tomorrow morning, bright and early at 8 o'clock for another edition of the Digital Desk. Take care.